Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Glory of the Sun God. Chapter 1. In the early morning, a group of tourists had already gathered on the seaside of the East Coast. After finally coming to the famous port of New York and seeing the Statue of Liberty, which symbolizes freedom and democracy, if you can't witness her grace in the rising sun, wouldn't it be a waste of time? The weather is fine today. On the coast, reporters from the Morning News Department of City Economics were waiting here early. As the official mouthpiece for promoting the city's prosperity and stability, it was their job to capture the moments of the citizens' happy life and the city's bustling cityscape. The view of the sun at the estuary of the Hudson River is a scenery they often use. Tourists from all over the world gathered together to witness the magnificent figure of the Statue of Liberty under the radiance of the sun and feel the freedom of the democratic country. Ah, what a beautiful picture! The long votes will definitely increase by a few percentage points, and then the funds allocated to them will also increase by that amount. Almost. April, get ready. Looking at the red light on the line between the sea and the sky in the distance, the rising sun is about to jump out of the sea. The cameraman hurriedly greeted his female anchor partner, and then pointed the camera at the place where the big sun rose. Dear audience, the place where we are now is the best place to view the sunrise in this city, the estuary of the Hudson River, not far from the city's landmark buildings, the Statue of Liberty. God bless America. Not today, surprisingly. There are still many tourists from all over the world flocking here. The beautiful hostess is well-groomed and graceful, with a bright smile that is very sunny. Ah, looking at the inscription board and continuing to read the manuscript, the female anchor was unmoved. They would come here once a month, and every time, those who saw the sun rising would shout like this. Ah, you fool, what's that? However, the female anchor, who was still reading the manuscript, soon discovered that not only were the people around her shouting louder and louder, but even her fellow cameraman changed his face. My God, is that? The female anchor had a professional smirk on her face. She turned her head inadvertently, and in the next second, she felt like she had taken dynamite. The sunshine she had pretended before was gentle, beautiful and kind, and at that instant broke in work. In the footage of the morning news, countless viewers on the East Coast witnessed such a scene. In the rising red sun, a giant golden bird flapped its wings, and as the sun rose, the body of the giant golden bird became more and more obvious, and then flapped its wings, accompanied by the sun shines on the earth, and the golden giant bird disappears into the sky. But soon, news came from all over the world, except for the East Coast of North America. All over the world, every continent, every country, and every region, everyone witnessed this unprecedented scene. August 8, 2012, sunny. Yes, on this day, the whole world is sunny, there are no dark clouds, and there is no rain. Even the scientific research stations far away in the North Pole and Antarctica have heard news that the wind and snow have stopped. What the hell are you telling me? It's science. Labor and capital are in the Antarctic, and it's polar night, but I looked up and saw that the sky was clear. This is definitely a god, the sun god. On the TV screen, a scientific expedition team member who was in Antarctica shouted loudly. No, this is just a special weather phenomenon. The weather is clear all over the world. Although it is incredible, I think this may be a warning from the Earth to human beings. As for the bird, it is just a mirage. In the university laboratory, the interviewed Professor Brick said so. The scene then cuts back to the studio. Well, it seems that our scientific expedition team members are a little emotional, but what Professor Myers said is right. Our scientists have proved that it is just a special natural phenomenon. Ridiculous. In Peanutton District, in a tall building with a strange shape, a black man wearing a black leather jacket with his left eye covered by an eye patch turned off the news in front of him, and then connected to the video communication. Have the test results come out? Not yet. A large amount of gamma radiation has indeed been detected, and anomalies have been found in the electromagnetic spectrum around the world, but we still haven't been able to determine the source. In the laboratory, researchers in white coats report. What do you think the nature of this incident is? However, the black man didn't seem to care about the outcome of the matter, but instead asked such a question. From a scientific point of view, I don't want to admit this possibility, but under the monitoring of the space station, there is no abnormality in the solar activity. Perhaps this situation is really caused by the gods. The person in charge of the research laboratory lowered his head and sighed. As a scientist, he actually believes in the existence of gods, which is really ridiculous. However, the black man who knew more about the inside story nodded thoughtfully, and then hung up the communication. God. Another question from Asgard. Then he made another call. It's me, Nick Fury. I'm asking to restart the Avengers project. Yes, today's sun incident, I suspect it has something to do with Asgard, and this time I'm afraid it won't be as easy to deal with as before. Previously, a small town in the state of Mexico was wiped off the face of the earth, but this time the impact is global. Regardless of whether it is a god or a more advanced and developed alien, there is no doubt that this is something that the current Earth may not be able to handle. Open your eyes, wake up. Wang Hao looked at the sky. The sun was very warm, penetrating into his body bit by bit, making him feel full of vitality. Hiss, am I here? Turning his head to look, it was the rippling blue sea. Wang Hao was just floating on the sea quietly. What the hell, am I sleeping at home? Wang Hao frowned, and then a memory flooded into his mind. He is an ordinary young man who lives in a flower planter. He was lying on the bed playing with his mobile phone while sleeping last night, but he accidentally downloaded an app. After clicking on it, he was asked to do the quiz. Do you want to travel through? What type of world did you travel to? What kind of gold finger ability do you want to get? After answering a bunch of questions like this, in the end, Wang Hao couldn't remember what he answered. He just felt drowsy, and then came to the sea as soon as awakening came. This is me, time traveled. For real. After sorting out his memory, Wang Hao came to his senses. I'm afraid that app is not some kind of sand sculpture game or something to spread youthfulness. He has really time traveled. No, what about my gold finger? Wang Hao was floating on the sea, and he didn't know where he was for a while anyway, and he didn't feel weak or uncomfortable, so it didn't matter if he just floated like this. The most urgent task is to find the survival foundation of the Traverser, his gold finger cheat. Let's think about it. What did I choose at the time? Super ability. No. Martial arts. No. System flow. It doesn't seem right, Grandpa. Super blood. Suddenly, Wang Hao slapped the water surface, and a flash of light flashed in his mind. I remembered, I chose a godhead, and among those priesthoods, I seemed to choose the sun. Wang Hao's eyes lit up. They really lit up. He looked up at the sun in the sky, and then, a strange feeling came between him and the sun that has been shining on the earth for billions of years built up. This is my spiritual space. No, it's the kingdom of God. In a group of chaos, there is a blazing fireball, and in the center of the fireball, a golden crow stands in it, and under the belly of the golden crow, 3 sharp legs appear. This is Wang Hao's divine body, the 3-legged golden crow. Concentrating his mind, he returned to the real world. At the moment, Wang Hao had stood up. Although he had been floating in the sea for a long time, his body was clean without any water stains. But at this moment, he was crossing in the air, and his feet were still tens of centimeters away from the sea surface. Can I fly? Seeing his body floating in the air, Wang Hao was surprised to find that not only flight, but his entire body had undergone huge amounts of changes. The skin became delicate, the muscles became tough, and the curves of the body seemed to be hacked with knives and axes, just like a work of art in the hands of a peerless master. Although there is no mirror, Wang Hao feels that his appearance should also become more perfect. Is it a divine body? God is a symbol of perfection, and the sun god is the most perfect and masculine symbol. However, what abilities do I have? Flying in the air, this feeling is no different from walking on the ground. It is as easy as eating and drinking, which is completely equivalent to instinct. But besides that, Wang Hao also wanted to know what abilities he had. Closing his eyes and meditating quietly, Wang Hao felt everything around him. Boom! A flame appeared beside him. Afterwards, the surrounding light gathered towards him again, and then spread around. Light and heat, the basic abilities of the sun. There is also flight. In other words, whatever abilities the sun has, I will have whatever abilities the sun has. Wang Hao poured out all the knowledge he had learned in the 9 years of compulsory education in his mind. Physics teachers in middle and high schools would be very pleased if they watched this scene. Unexpectedly, after leaving school for so many years, Wang Hao is still able to review the past and learn the new. Light, 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 then can I see the situation hundreds of millions of miles away? And the spectrum, the spectral colors that humans see are only three, that is, the three primary colors, and there are countless kinds in nature that are not recognized. The color or light that humans see. Wang Hao's eyes were wide open, and he tried his best to look into the distance. With a radius of tens of thousands of meters, the world shrouded in light appeared in his eyes instantly. Acute eyes, get. Wang Hao grinned, feeling that he is indeed a genius. Ah, there's land over there. Wang Hao turned his head to the west, and was about to fly directly there, but after thinking about it, flying there like this might make headlines tomorrow. He is too lazy to deal with various media or other forces. The refraction of light can cause visual invisibility. I remember that in a movie I watched before, oh yes, The Avengers Alliance, in which Schild's helicarrier achieved optical invisibility through surface refraction. Just do what you think. The light that seems untouchable to others is like a hair in front of Wang Hao, playing with it at will. Looking at his missing arm, Wang Hao smiled. Okay, invisibility magic learned. Compared with the rewards given by the so-called system release tasks, Wang Hao enjoys the feeling of discovering new things a little bit by himself, and has the thrill of clearing the game. But he didn't study here all the time. The sea is really boring, let's talk about it on land. On the East Coast in the early morning, the port of New York is unusually lively. The strange scene yesterday morning made the whole world boil. Although scientists from various countries have repeatedly explained that it is just a special natural phenomenon, similar to a mirage. But when is there a mirage that can be seen by the whole world, and it still lasts for a whole day? Talk about the sun god and gods was rampant for a while, which led to the fact that the east coast of North America, which was the first to see this scene, was full of people who came to witness the miracle. However, what no one noticed was that on a crowded beach, an Asian man walked out of an empty public relations toilet. Not a florist. Seeing whites and blacks everywhere, occasionally mixed with some Asians, Wang Hao knew he was going abroad. Acute eyes. With another glance, Wang Hao suddenly realized. The Statue of Liberty, it turns out to be New York. As a worldwide landmark, Wang Hao still doesn't know the colleague holding the torch. Well, that is the Statue of Liberty, and he is the sun god. Although they have different functions, they are indeed colleagues. I just don't know if it's the original world. I know the location, but Wang Hao still doesn't know which world it is. After all, many worlds have New York City, but this doubt only lasted for a while. Is this the Stark building? At any rate, he is a 10-year-old fan of Marvel, and Wang Hao naturally doesn't even know this thing. He has a bird's eye view of the entire city of New York, and the Stark building in Manhattan is very eye-catching. Okay, Marvel World. After thinking that he came to this world, Wang Hao couldn't express his feelings for a while. Movies are movies after all, and although he has read many original Marvel comics, he is really not excited about coming to such a world. However, it must be a lot of fun. Compared with the local wars in our own world and the overall peaceful situation, the situation in the Marvel world is more complicated, and it can be said that there are constant small chaos and big chaos. I seem to be immortal. The human body will age due to the limitation of the number of cell divisions, but my divine body does not seem to have this limitation. No matter how bad it is, I think my lifetime is almost as certain as that of the sun. Well, 5 billion years, shit, human civilization has only developed for less than 10,000 years. 5 billion years, 10,000 years, the huge amounts of difference between the two numbers made Wang Hao's scalp tingle for a while, and he didn't know how to spend such a long time. No matter what kind of enjoyment, it seems so boring to use 10,000 years as a unit, let alone 100 million years. Gah, don't think about it, first, go and play with him first. Looking at the city, Wang Hao flew up directly. This time he didn't shy away from it, and took off directly among the crowd. Because he suddenly discovered that troubles are troubles, it is more interesting than nothing, otherwise boredom and loneliness will probably drive him crazy. So amidst the exclamation and screams of the crowd, Wang Hao flew straight to Manhattan. Alarm, alert, an unknown object is approaching at high speed. Cannot be intercepted, alert. The sharp siren woke up a guy who was obsessed with research and had just fallen asleep. On the large bed, the man with a scruffy beard was sleepy. Jarvis, what is it? Sir, I think you may need to get up, we have been invaded. The word, invasion, caused the sleepy eyes of the man on the bed to widen suddenly. Invasion. There is no worry, no fear, and excitement is on his face. It has been a year since he was chased by the whip last time, and then he comprehended the preparation of new elements to the time he established the Stark building and developed the Mark 7. In the past year, everything has been so peaceful, everything is peaceful and peaceful, even those terrorists no longer show their heads. He, Tony Stark, was bored to death. Get ready to dress. Also, where is the intruder? Bounced from the bed, Tony didn't even have time to change, and ran straight to the living room, where his battle armor lay. Forehead. Looking at the man in the living room who was standing in front of his armor, stroking his armor with shining eyes, Tony shrank back. Jarvis, why didn't you tell me the intruders had come in? The battle armor was very close, actually about 3 meters away. Watching the other party caressing his Mark 6 as if no one else was there, Tony leaned forward slightly. Hey, that one. The other party didn't look back. Tony was a little annoyed, but he still squeezed out a smile when he thought that his armor was in front of others and he couldn't equip it for a while. Hey, sir, this is a private area, and it's also a personal item. Crack. Black lines jumped out from Tony's forehead. Looking at Mark 6's severed arm, his heart was bleeding. Every set of battle armor is his child. Can you not feel distressed if your child's hand is interrupted? No, break it. Tony narrowed his eyes slightly. Although it was broken at the joint, his battle armor can fly at supersonic speed at an altitude of 10,000 meters. How could it be broken by hand? Sorry, I didn't expect it to be so fragile. The man turned around, full of masculine beauty, with a shy smile on his face like the reincarnation of Apollo in mythology. Wang Hao smiled sheepishly. No way, seeing the real steel armor in reality, not a high imitation product of cosplay, anyone can't help being a little excited. It's just that he didn't expect that his strength would become so great, and the steel armor that could defend against missile attacks would be broken by him. That's right, the sun is a symbol of power. What else in nature is more magnificent than the sun? Wang Hao quickly realized that it was not so hard to accept super strength or something. Opposite him, the disheveled Tony frowned. Mandarin. The man in front of him was tall and fit, not the fit of a bodybuilder. Not to mention flashy muscles, they were too bloated and unattractive. The man in front of him is the kind of muscle that has been exercised, with soft lines but no loss of edges and corners, and a graceful but full of strength. Even Tony, who has never regarded physical strength as an ability, has to admit that this is what a man should be like. As for his face, it is a typical Asian face, but the bridge of the nose is straight, the eyebrows are deep, the eyes are big and bright, and the smile is like a spring breeze, as warm as the sun, but there is also a majesty in it. Just like the sun, you enjoy the warmth of the sun, but you dare not look directly at it. Strangeness. This is Tony's first impression of Wang Hao. Can you speak English? Although he didn't know Wang Hao's purpose, when he saw Wang Hao smile, most of the hostility in Tony's heart dissipated inexplicably, and his tone softened. English. Wang Hao pondered for a moment, and in his mind, countless English vocabulary began to be compiled. 9 years of compulsory education, and English compulsory for the 4th level of college, all the knowledge about English is connected by silk threads. No problem. Speaking again, Wang Hao spoke more standard and standardized English than the English teacher. This is the god, amazing. Wang Hao thought to himself. He just thought about English, and as a result, the English-related content in his memory automatically emerged and sorted out, which is really a bit magical. But Tony didn't know the mystery. He walked to the bar and poured himself a glass of water, then asked, "Can you tell me what you are doing here? This is a private area." Although he was drinking water, Tony was actually searching for information about Wang Hao behind the bar that Wang Hao couldn't see. The glass bar top is actually a transparent touchscreen, and on the interface, the face of Wang Hao just photographed is being searched. And Wang Hao over there has already sat on the sofa after trying to put the broken arm back into the Mark 6 to no avail. "It's nothing, I'm bored, so I came to play with you." "You want to play with me?" As the world's top rich man, he has also mastered an epic making high-tech weapons such as steel armor. Some assassinated Tony, some kidnapped Tony, some kidnapped him and wanted him to design weapons for himself, and some asked to buy weapons. However, it was the first time that Tony met someone who came to him just to play with him. He immediately thought that Wang Hao's words were just an excuse, and the so-called play was just a game of cat and mouse. No, the search results came up, and to Tony's surprise, he didn't find any faces that matched Wang Hao. Definitely, this is not uncommon. After all, there are billions of people in the world. Google search has only recorded tens of millions of people. I'm afraid I have to say sorry for that. I'm very busy and don't have time to play with you. Before he finished speaking, Wang Hao interrupted him by raising his hand. Don't rush to say no. Well, let me do you a favor. How about you, just show me the corrupt life of capitalism to your heart's content. Your playboy life, night and day music, wine pool and meat forest. To be honest, sleep time is a bit boss. No, I just got up and planned to have some fun. You are an expert in this field, arrange it for me. If Tony thought that Wang Hao was playing tricks on him before, now he no longer has such thoughts, but the feeling of speechlessness is even worse. But Wang Hao is telling the truth. As an ordinary person, how could he experience the corrupt life of those upper-class people and rich people who only existed in small videos or were rumored by others? It's hard work, so why don't you hurry up and arrange it? However, as a new driver, finding an old driver to lead the way is the safest way to drive, and the oldest old driver in the entire Marvel world is the one in front of you. I don't need your help. Listen, sir, I'm very busy. I manage a company with a market value of hundreds of billions. I'm also a scientist. I really don't have time. In fact, if it wasn't for the scene where Wang Hao broke Mark VI's arm just now, Tony would have called security. Although Wang Hao's appearance and smile are easy to give people a good impression, his behavior like a vexatious child still makes people unhappy. Oh, you need my help. The war is about to start. I can help you win. The Stark building was built shortly before the Avengers Alliance New York battle. Wang Hao remembered this very clearly. But now that the building is completed, it is not devastated, and New York is peaceful, which means that the Chitauri invasion is imminent. That's why Wang Hao said that Tony needed his help. As for danger, although he doesn't know who is stronger than Thor, Wang Hao feels that he is at least much stronger than Hawkeye and the Captain. If this is the case, what danger is there? Except for Hulk and Thor, the rest of the original Avengers Alliance are all mortals. Even if the Captain has been strengthened, he will still die if he takes 2 bullets. So, it can't be that those few guys who are not much better than ordinary people can kill 7 in and 7 out in Chitauri, and Wang Hao, the sun god, can go in and lie down in seconds, right? War. Wang Hao's words made Tony frown, and he suddenly felt that the man in front of him might be some kind of mentally abnormal person with a special ability. Sorry, sir, there's a real war going on, and we've got an army, and I don't think I need you, or you. There was nothing wrong with Tony's words. After thinking about it, Wang Hao realized that he couldn't prove the Chitauri invasion to Tony. Why can't we grab 2 Chitauri and show him? And he suddenly thought that since Chitauri is about to invade, his enjoyment doesn't seem to last long. Maybe he is still eating hot pot and singing songs in the American version of Heaven and Earth, and then a big green butt fell from the sky. Forget it, let's wait until the fight is over. Thinking of this, Wang Hao put a smile on his face again. Then, excuse me, after waving his hand, without waiting for Tony's response, Wang Hao walked directly from the floor-to-ceiling windows to the large balcony outside, and then jumped. Fack. Tony's eyes widened, and he quickly chased after him, only to see Wang Hao's figure floating in the air, but he didn't fall down. Can he fly? Tony's brow furrowed again. Is it some kind of personal flight device? No, it's impossible. He didn't wear any personal flight device just now, and there was no tail flame during the flight, and the flight posture didn't seem to be propelled by some kind of engine. The sudden appearance of strange people made Tony Stark spend an unforgettable morning. Wang Hao, who left the Stark building, landed on the top of a certain building after flying for a while. Button. Is anyone there? He knocked on the small door on the top of the building, and then the small door opened suddenly, and an ethereal voice reached Wang Hao's ears. The sun god is here, please come in. Hearing the response, Wang Hao smiled and knew he came to the right place. Boom. After crossing the threshold, Wang Hao appeared in the hall in the next second, and behind him, a chair was ready. Definitely, the most important thing is that in front of him, a bald woman wearing a strange style of robe is sitting there drinking tea. Please. The pure Mandarin made Wang Hao feel very cordial, and he sat down directly, and then a cup of brewed tea appeared out of thin air in front of him. Yes, not bad. Pick up the teacup and drink it down in one gulp. Although you don't know much about tea, but it tastes good, that's good tea. Just now Tony Stark didn't even buy me a glass of water, but Ancient One magician, you know how to be polite. Yes, the place where Wang Hao came is the New York holy place of Sorcerer Supreme. The sun god came here and made my place luxuriant, and tea is nothing. Ancient One's attitude was very respectful, which made Wang Hao, who was about to say something, slightly puzzled. Don't you often talk to Odin and the others, why are you so respectful to me? Although Wang Hao is now the sun god, his place is not simple. This is the Marvel world, there are not too many great gods from all walks of life. Thor and Loki are nearby, Odin, the god of wisdom, Dormammu, the evil god of darkness, etc. are far away. And Ancient One is the existence that sits and discusses with Odin. Although Wang Hao thought he was awesome, he didn't think he was invincible. But Ancient One's answer surprised him. You are the sun god, I understand, you have just been born, so you still don't know much about many things. Saying that, Ancient One stood up, and took out a thick, ancient book from the bookshelf beside it. In this universe, there are countless gods. They are either self-proclaimed or recognized by heaven and earth. Leaving aside the self-proclaimed ones, those gods recognized by the will of the universe can be divided into chaos gods and cosmic gods. Quote, the gods of chaos were born on the basis of planets and civilizations. They originated from the beginning of the planet, and their prosperity is greater than the prosperity of civilization. Most of them are the manifestation of natural images. Wind and rain, thunder and lightning, water and fire, light and darkness. The book unfolded, a ray of light manifested, and the figures of countless ancient gods appeared in it. And the gods of the universe were born in response to the will of the universe. Having said that, Ancient One paused, and then glanced at Wang Hao. The gods of the universe were born in response to the will of the universe. Each of them has a special meaning to the universe. The most powerful and representative ones are the five creators of eternity, infinity, death, annihilation, and the devourer of the planet. Gods of the world, they maintain the existence of the universe. In addition, there are many gods of the universe, such as the god of white magic, Waishandi, who is believed by the Sorcerer Supreme family. The book was closed, and Ancient One continued. The gods of the universe come from many sources. Some are directly conceived by the universe, some are cultivated by powerful individuals, and there are also extremely developed civilizations that evolved as a whole, but they all have one characteristic. They transcend this universe. Hey, wait. Wang Hao raised his hand and looked at the book in Ancient One's hand. The expression on his face fully explained what it meant to be confused. Detachment. Didn't it mean that it was born in response to the will of the universe? Ancient One smiled and explained. The identity of the gods of the universe is a personality, but compared to this universe, it is not a relationship of affiliation, but a relationship of collaborators. According to ordinary people's thinking, the will of the universe is equivalent to the board of directors, and the gods of creation are the board of directors. Members, and the gods of the universe are equivalent to the management of the company. When a certain position is vacant, they will send invitations to suitable strong people, or train them themselves. After speaking, Ancient One sighed again. Whether it's the gods of chaos, our beings, or the countless planets, they're all just products of this company. Walking on the road and blowing the wind, Wang Hao suddenly wanted to laugh. He just wanted to experience magic, but he got such news, which is really unexpected. God of the universe, management. Interesting. According to Ancient One's words, Odin and the others are just chaos gods. No matter how powerful they are still chaos gods, born and raised here. It may be possible to live the same life as heaven and earth, but their lives are not worth mentioning to the entire universe. But Wang Hao is different. His priesthood looks similar to that of a chaos god, but his personality is a real cosmic god, at the same level as the magic god Waishandi believed by Ancient One, which is why she is so respectful. It's just that she thought I was created by the will of the universe, but I am a time traveler. No matter what power caused me to travel to this point and become the sun god of the universe, that power must have surpassed this universe. In other words, foreign companies forcibly acquire shares. But in any case, knowing this matter is more beneficial to Wang Hao than harmful. For example, he will not die. Because he and the death god of this universe, that is, death, one of the 5 creation gods, are at the same level. Therefore, he is no longer under the jurisdiction of death, so naturally he cannot die. Like Odin Thor, they are known as regenerative healing factors. They are immortal, but there will be a day when they die, and their names have long been recorded in the small book of death. But Wang Hao did not. Wang Hao's name was destined not to be recorded when he became the sun god. Moreover, what Wang Hao cares more is that since he is the management, he can leave at any time. In other words, as long as he wants, he can leave this universe and play elsewhere. Squeak. The piercing sound of brakes brought Wang Hao back from his thoughts, and when he looked up again, he was surrounded by a group of agents in black suits and armed with weapons. Sir, I'm Agent Phil Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D. We have something we want to know. Mediterranean, professional smirk, British accent, yes, Phil Coulson. Although, like Tony, he looks different from the characters in the movie, but after combining these characteristics, Wang Hao is sure that the person in front of him is that Phil Coulson. So, he got in the car directly. The first thing to do when you come to Marvel is to take a photo. Before reading novels, Wang Hao also saw many colleagues who traveled to the Marvel world, but most of them had a hard life, working part-time and going to school, and they honed their upgrades timidly to obtain a super ability. Or it is to be a hero every day, so that you can gain experience points just like upgrading from fighting monsters. And he is basically invincible once he comes out. That being the case, why not just do whatever you want? Definitely, after all, Mr. Wang is not a devil. He came here for sightseeing, but the attractions were replaced by well-known figures like Tony and the others. How old are you? Looking at Phil Coulson sitting in the front row, Wang Hao asked with a smile. Ah, less than 40. How big is it? 38. Hearing this answer, Wang Hao burst out laughing. Don't you S.H.I.E.L.D. have a union? Nick Fury squeezes you like this. Look, you're only 38 years old. Where's your hair? Wang Hao was curious before. How hard is the work of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Phil Coulson has been completely bald since his first appearance in the S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent TV series. It doesn't look like a few years, but a man who is in the heyday of his popularity is just like this. And he is not the only one who is bald. The 25th boy of Hydra, including the director himself, are all bald. I suggest you apply for a subsidy. Your physical fitness is no good. Apply for a hair transplant subsidy for men, and an early menopause subsidy for women. I'm afraid the female agents in your bureau have a bad temper. The driver's eyes kept drifting to the co-pilot, and he couldn't hide his smile, while Phil Coulson was embarrassed, but he looked at his head through the rearview mirror from time to time. The few strands of hair that are still standing upright interpret their last strength. But in the 3-curved wing building of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Nick Fury, who was watching all the movements in real time, narrowed his eyes slightly. Something wrong. Half an hour later, in Nick Fury's office, Natasha Romanoff and Hill were waiting for the report. What's wrong? He's a handsome guy. Are you sure he's really the leader of yesterday's global vision? No, I'm not sure, but, before seeing him, my level of suspicion was only 10%, but after seeing him, my level of suspicion has increased to 70%. Nick Fury stared closely at Wang Hao, who was laughing with Phil Coulson in the car, with a heavy expression on his face. Why, in fact, according to reports, you sent Phil Coulson to find him only because he flew up in public and went to the Stark building for a while. Natasha Romanoff still doesn't quite understand that S.H.I.E.L.D. manages supernatural powers around the world, and there are countless situations like this kind of superpowers awakening or showing power. But why does Nick Fury think Wang Hao is special? It's his smile. Hill, tell me your first impression of him. Nick Fury looked at Hill, who was silent. Perfect, Sonny, I can't give birth to hostility, just like the brother next door when I was a child, and like the Prince Charming I have always dreamed of. Wait, you miss Prince Charming too? Natasha Romanoff laughed wildly for a while, but when she smiled, the smile on her face became stiff, and panic appeared in her eyes at any time. Well, that's what I thought too. Natasha Romanoff yelled. Only then did she realize that not only Hill, but also her first impression after seeing Wang Hao's face turned out to be the same. Mind control. Natasha Romanoff and Hill exchanged glances, then she shook her head again. It shouldn't be, this is a surveillance video, can he still apply mind control to us through the screen? What's more, we have all received relevant training on mind control. Again, even if there are no creatures like mutants in this world, there are still a lot of people with super abilities and superpowers. In the archives of S.H.I.E.L.D., there is a huge amount of information on people with extraordinary abilities, and there are many people who are good at hypnotic ability control and mental pollution. Therefore, for spiritual training, this is a compulsory course for S.H.I.E.L.D. high-level agents. What's more, it is too scary to connect mind control along the network cable, which is far beyond their understanding. It wasn't until now that Natasha Romanoff and Hill understood where Nick Fury's caution and concern came from. They are the top agents in the world. Suspicion is their most fundamental trait. Even the three people in the room will not fully trust each other, because only in this way can they get to this position without being killed. However, just such three people, when they saw Wang Hao's face, they didn't even communicate face to face. They don't know, not even Wang Hao. As the sun god, Wang Hao is originally a symbol of light and justice, and a manifestation of male masculinity. Anyone who has a bright heart will trust him and get close to him. For women, the image of Wang Hao is almost the image of the dream lover of all women. You racked your brains, day and night, and conceived a perfect Prince Charming in your mind, but when you saw Wang Hao, you knew he was exactly what you wanted. Because no matter how perfect you think, you are not as perfect as him. Just because he is the sun god, I think we should pay more attention to him. Natasha Romanoff's face was solemn. Wang Hao's charm was obviously more exaggerated for women than for men. If Nick Fury was just hard to produce malice, then Natasha Romanoff and Hill had already reached the point where they expected to be close. This is too strange. She is Black Widow. When she was trained in the Red House, in order to prevent the female agent from falling in love and making irrational judgments, the people in the Red House even symbolized their female, the organ that breathes life. They were all excised. So she has never been tempted by any man. To put it bluntly, it's like a man cutting off his balls. How can he be tempted? Originally, it is most suitable for you to do this matter, but now it seems that I can only come forward in person. As a flower of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury's big killer, against male targets, Natasha Romanoff can play a better effect than most male agents. It's not by showing off their looks, but the nature of men. Unless they are gay, most men have a significantly different attitude towards beautiful women and other men. But now, I haven't met yet. Just watching the surveillance video for a while, Natasha Romanoff's mind is shaken, which makes Nick Fury dare to send her to perform the task of contact. 3 hours later, heading north from New York, Wang Hao took S.H.I.E.L.D's special car to the Peanutton district, and then went around for a while, and finally stopped in front of S.H.I.E.L.D's headquarters. Mr. Wang, please. The chat along the way was very happy. Although he was ridiculed about his hair, Phil Coulson was in a very good mood, as if he had a long talk with an old friend he hadn't seen for many years. But when Wang Hao got out of the car, he realized that Phil Coulson was no longer hostile, but it didn't mean that others didn't. There were quite a few snipers and agents hiding around. Definitely, he didn't care about such small things. The only thing that disappointed him was that he didn't see the widow's sister. Strange, according to director Nick Fury's temperament, shouldn't it be Natasha Romanoff agent who came to greet me at this time? Wang Hao reminded me a little bit. Dealing with a group of unsmiling agents is not as fun and enjoyable as dealing with a charming Black Widow. Even if there can't be some super friendship links, and the other party may be an extreme old driver, but those things are not the only things between men and women. It's interesting to be teased by an old driver, isn't it? Anyway, Wang Hao in the past didn't have this kind of opportunity, not to mention the level of widowed sisters. Even ordinary young ladies had to be teased by him, and most of them would hit a wall. Agent Romanoff should have other tasks to perform, but director Nick Fury plans to meet you personally, and he is already waiting upstairs. Phil Coulson is no stranger to Wang Hao's inadvertent display of excessive understanding of S.H.I.E.L.D. After 3 hours of chatting in the car, this kind of stuff has long been known. Forget it then, let's talk to Braised Egg. Through his acute eyes, Wang Hao has long spotted Nick Fury standing in front of the upstairs window looking at him. The image of the other party is also not like Samuel Jackson, more serious and rigid, not as humorous as Samuel. But that's not the point. The point is, he's still a jerk. Mr. Wong Hao, braised egg, what exactly is it? This was the third time Phil Coulson heard this word, but he didn't ask about it the first 2 times. He had an intuition that it should be a bad word, but curiosity still prevailed after all. Bring your mobile phone. This is a kind of snack. If you have a chance, I will treat you to the flower planter. Taking Phil Coulson's mobile phone, Wong Hao skillfully opened the Chinese version of Google, searched it, and then showed it to him. Puff! The elevator door opened. Phil Coulson looked at the phone and finally couldn't help laughing, especially when he looked up and saw that his director was facing away from them. The back of that dark and shiny head was exactly like the pictures of marinated eggs found on the phone. It's the same. His laughter suddenly grew louder. Cough. Nick Fury, who originally wanted to pretend to be deep, narrowed his eyes, then turned around, staring at Phil Coulson, who covered his mouth and sneered with one eye. Sorry, Chief. Phil Coulson, who was stared at by Nick Fury's death, quickly restrained his expression, but he couldn't fully control it for a while. The corners of his mouth twisted very strangely, and he looked ridiculous. You go down first. Seeing the appearance of his confidant general, Nick Fury quickly waved him to leave, and turned his head again, only to find that Wong Hao had walked in front of him at some point, looking up and down there. Well, it's a real person. Wong Hao can not only see things in a farther range by collecting the surrounding light, he can also analyze matter through different spectra in nature. Like X-rays. X-ray is an invisible light that cannot be seen by human eyes, but it can, including ultraviolet and infrared rays, etc., so with this ability, he can also perform functions similar to analyzers and even see through. And right now, he's analyzing Nick Fury. Because he remembered that Nick Fury had duplication. In the movie, Nick Fury has been replaced by Skrulls, but in the comics there are more, robotic biochemicals, replicants, etc. In the comics, everyone in the Avengers Alliance has died. Just this guy, you thought he was dead after a few days, he changed his vest and was resurrected again. However, the world he came to is indeed more biased towards the plot of the movie. The Nick Fury in front of him is a real person, not an alien or a robot biochemical man. Then Wong Hao turned to another topic. Do you have a picture of Carol? Show me. The bright smile does not contain the slightest hostility, giving people a feeling of spring breeze. Nick Fury may not be called a good person, but he definitely yearns for light in his heart and hopes that the world will be peaceful. Therefore, he will naturally be infected by the bright breath of Wong Hao. This is not mind control. It's like when you see a beautiful woman and you think she is beautiful, it is because she is beautiful. And now when Nick Fury sees Wong Hao, he will feel that Wong Hao is a good person, bright and just. Because now Wong Hao represents light and justice. This is far higher level than mind control, so even people like Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff who have been trained by mind control cannot resist it. Carol, which Carol? Nick Fury didn't notice any abnormalities. Facing Wong Hao's question, he replied casually, just like an old friend who has known him for many years, with a relaxed tone. Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Wanting to see Carol's photos is naturally not Wong Hao's brain, he just wants to see if this world is Aunt Marvel. Personally, he still prefers gentle girls who are soft, cute and obedient. Carol's design is for the so-called female fist characters. No matter how beautiful they are not his style. However, Wong Hao's inquiry made Nick Fury further deepen his doubts. He has already learned from Phil Coulson's report that Wong Hao may have a deep understanding of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he did not expect that the understanding has reached this level. Carol Danvers, Project Pegasus and Captain Marvel, that's not a secret that just anybody can get. Her photo is in the file Curry, and there is no digital version. Nick Fury shook his head. Some confidential information will not be uploaded to the network. It is either stored in paper or stored in a storage device isolated from the network. And Carol's file clearly falls into this category. Wong Hao didn't insist on this, but was just slightly disappointed. Then Mr. Wong Hao, should we discuss your origin now? Seeing Wong Hao sitting on the sofa a little bored, Nick Fury asked. After several hours of driving, Phil Coulson has compiled a large amount of information. For example, Chinese American appearance, obvious Chinese American habits and tone of voice, etc. For the unexpected understanding of S.H.I.E.L.D., the identity is completely unknown, and even similarities do not exist. There is also a complete disregard for the escort of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, plus flight's ability. It can be judged that it is fearless, so it is powerful, and so on. But Nick Fury still wants to get more comprehensive information from Wong Hao, which is also his job. In this regard, Wong Hao also confessed very frankly, "I am a god, the sun god." Not surprised, and even kind of like that. Nick Fury nodded, and continued asking, "From Asgard?" "Asgard? No, 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 Asgard is just a god who was born on the earth and belongs to the civilization of the earth. I am the sun god of the entire universe." What Ancient One said to Wong Hao was told to Nick Fury by him, which also puzzled Nick Fury a little. Because Asgard belongs to the Nordic gods, it has the obvious appearance of a blonde Viking, and Wong Hao is very different from Thor in terms of name and appearance. And since Thor came to the earth, S.H.I.E.L.D. has specialized in researching various myths on the earth. Asgard has its own sun god, Balder, who is Thor's younger brother, but according to the records, he died in battle a long time ago. "So, you are higher level." Nick Fury understood Wong Hao's words, and then came to a conclusion. "Yes, you can understand that he is the mayor and I am the governor. This is indeed easier to understand. Definitely, it's just a metaphor, but it's actually very different." But the metaphor is good enough for Nick Fury and the people of Earth. "So, what happened yesterday was caused by you." Since Wong Hao said that he is the sun god, and it happened to be the sun that had a problem yesterday, there is naturally a relationship between the two. But Wong Hao was in a daze. He just woke up today. How could he know what happened yesterday? Yesterday, what happened? Nick Fury did not explain, but directly released the video. In the recorded picture, the sun is rising, the golden giant bird spreads its wings and soars, the golden fire falls, and the breath of divinity begins to spread. "Ah, it should be me." Wong Hao recalled, this should be caused by his arrival. When a god is born, some visions are normal. He just woke up today, but if he crossed yesterday, it would make sense. Moreover, isn't that giant golden bird his divine body, the golden crow? I remembered, yesterday I slept for hundreds of millions of years and just woke up, so this happened. Wong Hao would not say that he has just become a god, and sleeping for hundreds of millions of years sounds more realistic. Billions of years. Nick Fury played the word in his head, pondering its authenticity. If it is really possible to sleep for hundreds of millions of years and then wake up again, it may not be good news for human beings. Human civilization has only been developed for less than 10,000 years, and this number multiplied by 100 million times is only the length of Wong Hao's sleep. So, Mr. Sun God, what is your purpose? And what is your attitude towards human beings? Nick Fury is naturally not so easy to trust others, but helplessly, Wong Hao's words are full of persuasion. As long as you yearn for the light in your heart, it is hard not to believe Wong Hao's words. If it were someone else, Nick Fury would list you as a threat first, and then a wave of guesses and probes would be launched, and 360-degree monitoring without dead ends would start. But he believed what Wong Hao said without reservation. Most obviously, his choice of words. After he confirmed that Wong Hao is the sun god, he used the honorific title. But believe it or not, he still wants to continue his work, so he spoke. Purpose. I came here to play. I don't know the attitude towards human beings. I still need to investigate. Yes, I need to investigate. Although he is said to have become a god, Wong Hao was just an ordinary person before he woke up, so the mentality of being high above and looking down on ants does not exist yet. It takes time to cultivate. The biggest difference between gods and humans is not in strength. The nuclear bombs made by humans can even kill gods. Definitely, we are talking about gods like Thor and cosmic gods like Wong Hao. It won't kill you. But no matter what kind of god it is fundamentally different from human beings, and the easiest thing to reflect is actually time. One is 100 years in a hurry, and the other is the same life of heaven and earth. The life of the former may be just a nap for the latter, and this is the biggest difference between the two. Wong Hao can still maintain a human mentality now, but after 100 years, 200 years, or even 1,000 years, it will be difficult for him to maintain this perspective. And he had thought about it when he knew that he might live forever, that's why he flew into the sky among the crowd, and that's why he let the shield people bring him here. Just because of people's troubles, for God, it might not be a way to pass the time. But such an answer is not particularly satisfactory for Nick Fury. I need to know, is your so-called play harmful to human beings? Is it playing with life? Or playing with the entire civilization? Playing with life means that Wang Hao regards human life as nothing, and his future behavior may be out of control, and he will act recklessly, leaving dead bodies everywhere. And playing with civilization means going to war. However, Wang Hao shook his head and laughed, and then said something in Mandarin. It's about eating, drinking and having fun. So you went to Stark. The same Mandarin reply surprised Wang Hao. It is not surprising that Ancient One can speak Mandarin, because her ancestral home is in Tibetan areas, but Nick Fury can also speak Mandarin fluently. It turns out that your agent really needs to be proficient in 8 languages. I thought that was just an exaggeration in the movie. It's indeed an exaggeration. I only know 3 languages, Chinese, Russian and English. However, you woke up yesterday and had time to go to the movies. Nick Fury's Putonghua has a Beijing flavor, and his son's voice is very obvious. This is no longer a problem of learning. Wang Hao guessed that he may have lived in that city for a long time. The way I receive information is different from yours. For me, the information of human society only needs to be read. Fudge is a complete set of fudge, and Wang Hao doesn't know if he can do such a thing, but it doesn't prevent him from using other people's things to pretend to be aggressive. The biggest advantage of the high-level civilization in the super seminary over the low-level civilization lies in the management of information. Keisha can see through everyone's ability at a glance, which is very compelling. Definitely, for Nick Fury, it is undoubtedly that he has a little more fear of Wang Hao in his heart. But for Wang Hao, it would be better to be able to communicate in Mandarin. Although English communication is not an obstacle, it is not as comfortable as the orthodox language of our Kamigawa civilization. Stark knows how to play. I wanted him to take me with me, but I suddenly remembered that you must be very busy recently, especially him, who was born and died, so the plan was temporarily put on hold. Otherwise, there is no time to visit your shield. Is it because the beach bikini is not good looking, or the Manhan banquet is not delicious? When you have no survival pressure, you must find something to do to pass the time. Why do the richest people in the world still work? The money I earn will never be spent in 10 lifetimes, and I still have to work hard and work with only a few hours of sleep every day. No reason, because it's boring. Why is he not working? Beauty and delicious food are at your fingertips, and you can enjoy any kind of enjoyment. Thousands of people are under his command. If you don't work, you will be in a hurry. Wang Hao is even more exaggerated than them. After all, no matter how rich the richest people are, it is also the enjoyment of ordinary people. Life is limited and energy is limited, but Wang Hao has unlimited life and energy. So he was desperate to have some fun. No, come to S.H.I.E.L.D. for a visit. Where's Natasha Romanoff? Hill is fine, find someone to accompany me to go shopping, don't worry, it's not free, and help you solve one problem. When you're in a good mood, it's not a problem to solve too. Whether he didn't see the widow or not, Wang Hao still wanted to take a look in his heart. Although he probably felt that he would have no idea after seeing the widow, it would be different if he didn't see it. Hey, they all have their own affairs, and they can't get away for the time being. How about I find another female agent to accompany you? Thinking of the strange behavior between Natasha Romanoff and Hill just now, Nick Fury would never let them go with Wang Hao. He now regrets that he personally met Wang Hao, because he checked his thinking and found that he had overtrusted Wang Hao. His level of trust in Wang Hao has even reached the same level as Phil Coulson and Hill. And that's almost impossible. Nick Fury was deeply terrified by the ability of the old assembly of an intelligence organization to trust a person he met for the first time, but he couldn't say no to it. Forget it, let's change to a female agent, one who is gentler and younger. Then, beside Wang Hao, a big blonde wave appeared. Number 13, Agent. Looking at the serial number on the chest of the woman beside him, Wang Hao thought deeply. Sharon Carter. Do you live next door to the captain now? Sharon was very surprised to reveal the identity of the Comer and the current mission. She looked at her boss suspiciously, and the latter nodded helplessly. Okay, Mr. Wong, these things are confidential, it's best not to talk about them casually. Anyone who faces a person who has no secrets in front of him will probably be as helpless as Nick Fury, but still, he can't feel hostility, he feels fear, he feels guarded, but if he really wants to do something, he finds that he can't do it decide. So he chose the 13th agent Sharon Kate, whom he trusted, to accompany Wong Hao. In this way, even if Kate fell, at least the other party had been nurtured by the old man, and he would retain some loyalty to S.H.I.E.L.D. in his heart. And Wong Hao is also very satisfied with the choice of Nick Fury. Carter's appearance is outstanding, which fits Wong Hao's description. As for her personality, I won't say whether she is gentle or not, but she is definitely upright and sunny in her heart. And Wong Hao's divinity will not only passively attract such people, but also he will have a good impression of such people, or appreciate them. He can see the positive energy in others and see their light, just like the devil can always see the dark side of people to seduce. Moreover, Sharon Carter is Nick Fury's confidant, and her aunt is one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. She comes from a top political family. Being able to send her out already shows that Nick Fury attaches great importance to it. So what is he dissatisfied with? The two immediately walked out of Nick Fury's office and wandered around the tree-curved wing building, mainly asking where Wong Hao wanted to go, and Carter followed behind to explain, and opened the door with his key card by the way. There is a conference room over there, and there is a remote command room, which provides remote technical support for some agents. There is an equipment warehouse, which stores weapons and special equipment needed for S.H.I.E.L.D. field missions. The mysterious and closely guarded world's largest intelligence organization, S.H.I.E.L.D., has thus become a zoo that Wong Hao can visit freely. Who is that? The top floor of the tree-curved wing building, the World Security Council. In a room that was even more spacious and bright than Nick Fury's office, a white-haired old man stared at the surveillance video on the screen, frowning. Beside him is a white man with a bald head. Looking at the badge on his body, it can be seen that this is a 6th-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which already belongs to the category of high-level agent. According to the information, it seems to be the person Phil Coulson brought back from New York City today. It seems to be some super ability user who flew up among the crowd. It's strange, why can't I find his other data? The man searched for information in the database. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s database is much larger and more detailed than Google's. In the world of the famous Prism, the United States monitors the whole world, even the espionage of the phone calls of leaders of NATO allies. This matter is actually led by the intelligence department of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, they still haven't found any information about the man in their database, except for the video that suddenly appeared today on the beach in New York and took off in public. I don't know why, but I feel disgusted when I see him. Just as flowers yearn for sunlight, there are naturally those who hate sunlight and light. Nick Fury and others yearn for the light in their hearts, and they will be attracted by Wong Hao involuntarily, wanting to get close to him and trust him. But if the heart is full of darkness, then seeing Wong Hao will involuntarily feel fear and disgust, just like this man. Alexander Pierce, Minister of the World Security Council, head of the upper division of S.H.I.E.L.D., immediate boss of Nick Fury, new generation leader of Hydra. Get more info on him, and also, find out why he's walking around in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s classified facility. During the monitoring, Wong Hao almost visited the entire S.H.I.E.L.D.'s open department. Except for the underground part and some places where the authority was restricted, even Sharon Cat couldn't enter, the other areas were completely open to Wong Hao. Naturally, this was against the rules, but Pierce's displeasure went far beyond that. However, he did not find Nick Fury and had no chance to ask him about this matter, because not long after meeting with Wong Hao, Nick Fury received the news, and then hurriedly boarded the plane, headed for a certain secret S.H.I.E.L.D. base fly away. The food at S.H.I.E.L.D. is not bad. After shopping for a long time, it was already dark outside. Wong Hao sat in the cafeteria of S.H.I.E.L.D. under the leadership of Carter, enjoying his first meal in this world. After all, the annual funds can feed a S.H.I.E.L.D. of the U.S. military. This food looks really good. The so-called Security Council, if it knows that all its investment has been spent on it, it will probably get sick from anger. Eating top-quality steaks, drinking thousands of dollars a can of top-quality coffee outside, all kinds of exquisite ingredients, top-quality ingredients, even if the chef is average, the taste will not be bad. The Security Council is composed of 5 major members. In addition to the United States, there are also big countries such as Japan, France, and Britain. In fact, they are member countries, and their main role is to give money. Otherwise, SHIELD is a helicarrier and a global base. Even the world's largest economy in the United States cannot support such a monster. But this has also led to the situation that SHIELD, which is much smaller than the US military, is extravagant inside. It eats the best and uses the best. Helicarriers don't come one by one, and give you the whole 4 ship to the sky. That thing, a few hundreds of billions can make it. The few anti-gravity engines that Stark built alone are worthless. But complaining about it, eating other people's food, Wang Hao still doesn't think that people are too corrupt. Even if he has opinions, he still feels that corruption is not enough. This is what ordinary agents eat, so how about a higher level one? No, I have to go to Tony when I'm done, and it's so corrupt. Alarm, alert. It seemed that Wang Hao's expectation had been answered, and he was still eating when suddenly the alarm sounded in the building. Carter, who was sitting across from him and staring at Wang Hao's face obsessively, woke up suddenly when he heard the alarm. After looking around in a daze, he suddenly found that the phone in his arms rang. Hey, Chief, yes, I'll take him there right away. Wang Hao was a little surprised by the sudden change, but before he could continue to be surprised, he saw Carter running out while blushing and holding his hand. What's the matter? I don't know, the SHIELD system has issued a 7-level alert, which means that the war has begun. The director asked me to take you there immediately. Wang Hao, who was still a little confused at first, immediately lit up when he heard the word war. Okay, war, the big scene is coming. Looks like Bambi is on the move. Wang Hao quickly realized that this was supposed to be the start of the first battle of the Avengers Alliance, and this was exactly what he wanted. It doesn't matter if you don't have time to enjoy the corrupt life of capitalism, then first fight a war between gods and gods, a war between humans and aliens. It's time to stretch your muscles. On Quinjet, Wang Hao looked at Agent Carter opposite him, his eyes full of ridicule. Although he was a little bewildered, he still found out that the blonde hair was abnormal. Her cheeks were rosy, her heart was beating fast, her ears were congested with blood, and she looked at Wang Hao with erratic eyes. She was clearly a strong woman who fought relentlessly, but at this moment she looked no different from a cute girl in love. Is my charm so great? Wang Hao touched his chin. He naturally knew about his body shape changes and appearance optimization. His image in the past wasn't too bad, so it would be no problem to tidy up and give him 7 or 8 points. There are some small blemishes on the skin, and the body is slightly fat, which meets the standards of modern people. But since he became a god, let alone small blemishes, even if he puts his face under a high-power microscope, he can never find any spots. But if she just became more handsome and had a better body shape, she wouldn't let an elite female agent who met for the first time show such a posture. Moreover, Sharon Carter is the captain's future girlfriend, and her ideal type has always been the captain. After all, the Aunt Peggy Carter has instilled in her ears how perfect the captain is. Are you okay? Wang Hao stood up suddenly and leaned against Carter. Ah, I'm fine. I can see that you look a little uncomfortable. Wang Hao's concern made Carter's complexion even more rosy, and her current state was like a peerless pervert seeing a peerless beauty. But this is not her problem, but Wang Hao is too attractive for women. It doesn't matter. Although her body was telling Carter that she wanted Wang Hao, her mind was still sober, not to the point where she couldn't hold on. If at the moment had an instrument test, it would have been found that the female hormones in Carter's body had seriously exceeded the standard. To put it bluntly, it is in heat. It's weird. After further confirming that there was a problem with Carter's state, Wang Hao also realized that it might also be caused by one of his special abilities. Special charm. Divine charm. Indeed, as a more perfect existence, God should have more charm for people with normal aesthetics. However, her state seems to be more than just charm. Wang Hao found it more and more interesting, and this process of constantly discovering his new abilities made him a little immersed in it. In other words, life needs surprises, and so does life in God. But Wang Hao didn't continue to use Carter to test his charm. It would be too embarrassing if you guessed wrong, and they were already in place. Hey, is this the helicarrier of SHIELD? The place they came from is not in the sky, because the mothership has not yet lifted off, and it is just an aircraft carrier floating in the sea. But even the aircraft carrier is very spectacular. In the past, Wang Hao had only seen this kind of man-made steel monster in movies and pictures, but it was the first time he had actually been on an aircraft carrier. To be honest, let alone an aircraft carrier, he used to live in an inland city and had never even been on a larger ship. Now seeing this kind of thing floating on the sea like a small island, if you are not surprised, it must be fake. At the moment it was still midnight, and sporadic lights flickered on the deck. In fact, even Nick Fury and the others hadn't arrived yet, and they were still taking care of business somewhere. Because they were the closest, Wang Hao was the first batch to catch up. Reinforcements arrived. It would be interesting to get one of these things out on the ocean. Taking advantage of the lack of people, Wang Hao is basically the only one wandering around on this deck. He also gave full play to the self-consciousness of a tourist. What is that for? After strolling around for an hour or two, the night wind gradually calmed down, and the huge deck was finished. Standing on the bridge and looking down, Wang Hao suddenly had an idea. There is the whole swimming pool, there is the whole court, playing tennis and volleyball. You can sunbathe there, and then a group of people gather around the barbecue at night. The long and narrow deck was divided into several areas by Wang Hao's left-hand swipe and right-hand flick. As for what he was thinking about, it was the summer island-style pool party, and the sports girl who was sweating on the court, radiant in the sun, and full of youthful spirit. Health, exercise, what a positive energy thing. No, I have to find a way to get a big thing like this. Well, forget about the aircraft carrier, it's not easy to modify, and I don't want those weapons, but other ships are not so big. And it's all made of steel. Looks good, it's better to have an island style, preferably a mobile island. After thinking about it carefully, Wang Hao gave up the idea of an aircraft carrier, and started to conceive a moving island, and further began to conceive some special activities and some special scenery on the island. Hey, why isn't Tony Stark here yet? After thinking for a long time, Wang Hao suddenly realized that he missed that guy a little bit. In the final analysis, this kind of thing still depends on the old driver to lead the way. But Stark hasn't arrived yet, but his word has arrived. Not long after Wang Hao visited the entire aircraft carrier, Nick Fury's plane landed, and the first thing he did when he got down was to find Wang Hao. Stark said you knew war was coming. My people went to Stark, and he said you talked about the war when you went to him. Nick Fury's gaze became sharp, and he began to doubt the relationship between Wang Hao and Loki. After leaving Wang Hao's side, his suspicious character once again gained the upper hand, making him question Wang Hao's purpose. But Wang Hao's next sentence dispelled his doubts. Yeah, I saw Loki doing something, and I was going to tell you about it, but you walked too fast, and I forgot it in a moment. Wang Hao looked at Nick Fury innocently, he really forgot about this. In other words, he didn't expect Loki to come here today, but Nick Fury, who got the explanation, believed his words for the first time, and then asked. So, do you know where Loki is now? Or where is he going? Loki ran away with Tesseract, and S.H.I.E.L.D. lost a lot, and Tesseract has the power to destroy the entire world, so it will definitely be recovered. It's just that the Tesseract is hidden by Loki in a special way, and the people under Nick Fury will not be able to find it for a while, and the expert he hired is still on the way, so Nick Fury has to ask Wang Hao for advice. And for this, Wang Hao is naturally well aware. Anyway, he was also the one who swiped the Avengers Alliance several times, so Wang Hao didn't hide anything and told him directly. He's moving now, so I can't know the exact location, but I really know where he's going. Digwo, your face recognition system can just focus there. Although it didn't say why Loki is going to the country, and where exactly it is going to be, but narrowing the whole world to the country is already a great help. Without further ado, Nick Fury turned his head to find someone and began to search, but here, the sky has turned pale, and the east coast sunrise has risen again. What a nice view. Standing on the bow of the aircraft carrier, Wang Hao looked into the distance, and he had an unprecedented perception of the power of the sun. In the past, the sunrise was viewed from the perspective of a human being, but now, the sunrise is viewed from the perspective of the sun god. Completely different feeling, completely different experience. Standing on the bow of the ship, Wang Hao couldn't let go of it for a long time, immersed in the communication with the most magnificent and vast celestial body in this world, unable to extricate himself. It wasn't until a shout sounded that Wang Hao came back to his senses and brought himself back to the real world. "Sir, it's dangerous to stand here." The person who entered was a graceful red-haired woman with burgundy curly hair and slightly dusty makeup, which portrayed her as very charming and fierce. It was already daylight, and Wang Hao looked around. Apart from the woman in front of him, there was also a young man who looked like he was dressed in the last century, and a middle-aged man with a scruffy appearance, but his eyebrows and eyes implied vigilance and wisdom. "Thanks for the reminder, Natasha Romanoff." Wang Hao smiled at the woman in front of him. A blush floated on the woman's face. Wang Hao remembered it in his heart, and then looked to the side. "Captain. And Dr. Banner. This must be the captain." Wang Hao can be 100% sure of this, except that the appearance is almost perfect, the strong physique, the perfect body shape and the firm yet soft face. Most importantly, that heart. As I said before, in addition to being extremely attractive to people with bright hearts and gaining their trust very easily, Wang Hao can also feel the light in other people's hearts. As for the man in front of him, at least so far, Wang Hao has not found anyone with a brighter aura than him. If it was in the chaotic era of the past, this man would have become a saint, admired by all people, praised by the world, and erected a monument. As for Dr. Banner, Wang Hao can also confirm and affirm that it is him, not for anything else, but not everyone has such a powerful force in their body. Even without transforming and showing Hulk's terrifying side, to Wang Hao, the energy in Banner's body that was more intense than a volcanic eruption was too obvious. And Wang Hao can see all the spectrum in nature. The gamma energy emanating from Banner is really too obvious. "Hi, I don't know who you are. Sorry, Fury didn't tell me about you, but judging by your incompatible outfit here, it seems that you are also a member of the Avengers Alliance." When Fury sent out the invitation, he gave each member a profile of the others. Of course, Wang Hao's was not included in that document. Not to mention that he only appeared for a day, there is no information at all, and Wang Hao did not say that he would join this Superboy group, and Nick Fury would not be so self-righteous to add his information into it. That's why the captain was so curious. It is really strange to see a person dressed in casual clothes like them in this military fortress, but who is not in the data. Avengers Alliance, I am not a member of it. As for joining, the possibility of joining is also very small, because I hate the word Avengers very much in the first place. Victory in war is always based on preparations for rainy days, not revenge after the fact. The sea breeze was howling, but Wang Hao revealed some cruel facts with a smile on his face. "If possible, I would prefer to end all evils and dangers before starting." Isn't this the meaning of SHIELD's existence? To monitor the world. When Wang Hao said this, he glanced at Natasha Romanoff. The latter's face remained unchanged, but the captain's eyes were already narrowed, and his face became serious. Chapter 11. I'm sorry, but I can't agree with you. How can a crime that hasn't happened be called a crime? Just because someone else has an idea. Just because another country wants to invade, so you have to attack first. However, the captain's impassioned enthusiasm did not go on, because Wang Hao had already slapped him on the shoulder. "Never mind, Steve, I'm just giving my opinion." The cheerful smile dispelled the captain's anger in an instant. He definitely didn't know that such a conversation should be held between him and Nick Fury in the near future. This led to the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's what Wang Hao said, let him debate with people like the captain who is right and who is wrong. Then he is more willing to give a slap and say that labor and management have big fists, so listen to me. The topic was quickly changed by Wang Hao. After a few words, the team leader and Wang Hao were already very close. If you don't talk about the issues involving his principles of handling things just now, then basically you can talk about everything and speak freely. And this scene naturally caught the attention of Natasha Romanoff, although she, like Carter, was attracted by the masculine aura of Wang Hao after close contact, and was about to enter estrus mode. But the professionalism of the top agent allowed Natasha Romanoff to think calmly and make judgments even in this situation. If it's not mind control, then there's a certain charm. Inside a closed room, Natasha Romanoff and Nick Fury report. Combining the situation of me, Hill and number 13, it is particularly attractive to women. After testing, there is no hormonal surge. There will be no abnormality if you don't see it across the corner, so it is ruled out as a physiological factor. Natasha Romanoff recalled her previous experiences and all kinds, and compiled some information. As for your inexplicable trust, there are no specifics yet, but I guess, if he is really the sun god, then he should be on the side of justice and light. Could it be his characteristics that lead to the so-called good guy? Trust him, stay close to him. After all, she is the female number one of the Avengers Alliance. There have been many supernatural beings missing in previous major events, but Black Widow is the only one who is rarely absent. Natasha Romanoff's wisdom has made her infinitely close to the truth, but this statement is obviously inappropriate for agents who pay attention to suspicion and conspiracy theories. Sure enough, Nick Fury scoffed at her words first. Attracting good people. I prefer to believe that it is some kind of spiritual suggestion that we are not aware of. What's more, do you think you are a good person? Nick Fury's words seemed to hit Natasha Romanoff's heart, and she had a sneer on her face after recalling it. Indeed, after doing those things, how can I be called a good person? Looking at their hands, they seem to be white, even more slender and perfect than the hands of many hand models, but they are actually covered with blood, and there are many old people and children among them. Natasha Romanoff never hoped to be redeemed, she just wanted to make up for her past mistakes, even a little bit. Okay, let's go out first. According to the information he gave, Loki will appear in Germany. The perfect system focuses on the target there, and the information should be given soon. After the debriefing, Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff appeared on the bridge. At the moment's helicarrier has been lifted off, and the visor has been opened to enter stealth mode. Everything is developing in an orderly manner as in the movie, and it seems that there is no change because of Wong Hao's arrival. Sir, we found it. Because of Wong Hao's guidance, the SHIELD system, which has been focusing its search on Daguo, discovered Loki as soon as he appeared. After confirming that it was Loki, Nick Fury looked at the captain first, and then hesitantly looked at Wong Hao. Mr. Wong, can I trouble you to help us arrest this guy? After all, you are all gods, and I think it might be more appropriate for you to deal with him. In the movie, Nick Fury chose to let the captain take the shot for some reason that no one was available. Iron Man hasn't come yet, and the Green Titan is an unstable factor, so he can use it at will, and Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye, obviously, these two ordinary people are not as powerful as the captain. So Nick Fury can only pin his hopes on the captain, but now it's different, he has better people to ask for. No problem, so Steve, come with me to see. You really deserve to see what war looks like in 70 years' time. Naturally, Wong Hao would not refuse Nick Fury's request. He even thought about whether Nick Fury would ask for help if he didn't ask him for help. After all, this was the first time he had the opportunity to make a move after becoming the sun god, and the rare target was also a god. Although according to Ancient One, he is the god of the universe, an existence on an equal footing with the creation god, while Odin and Loki are just chaos gods, which are dispensable products in the universe. On the square, the lights at night provided a faint light, reflecting the restless and fearful hearts of the civilians. And in front of them, a Mephisto in a strange costume and a huge antler helmet is waving the power of huge amounts of scepter, making loud noises. Kneel down, you mortals. With the blessing of magic, Loki's voice spread throughout the field and echoed in this square. The duplication surrounded the crowd, and in the crowd, among the mortals who were kneeling and begging for their lives, he laughed loudly and his face was rampant. Look, this is not you, freedom, what a ridiculous and absurd lie, they deceive you, and your heart, your essence is surrender. Surrender to me, the great god, Loki. Bambi has never been so happy. In God's domain, no matter how he behaves or works hard, he can only live in Thor's shadow. He is unwilling, he is angry, he hates. And now, he finally found his own fun. A flock of lost lambs, yes, kneel before me, surrender before the great Loki, beg my mercy, beg my grace. Give me all, swear allegiance to me. The scepter in his hand shines brightly, bewitching and inducing the spirit, and under the blessing of a certain gemstone with a powerful ability, it is like a poisonous snake biting the hearts of these hostages. The number one magician in the 9 realms, how could Loki, the god of trickery, only play with 2 daggers like in the movie? All of a sudden, shadowy, the people who were forced to kneel in front of Loki by death suddenly fell down, as if they had suddenly figured it out, and began to shout loudly, offering their loyalty to Loki. And this weird scene naturally fell into the eyes of everyone who had just arrived. What do you think of his performance? Inside the fighter plane, Wang Hao stroked his chin and glanced at the Loki who had reached the extreme level of second grade. Indeed, in his opinion, this was a second-grader boy. He thinks about becoming the devil who destroys the world all day long, or dreams of ruling the world, wishing that everyone would kneel at his feet. Well, Wang Hao also thinks that kind of feeling is very cool. A group of people shouted at him, and a group of cute young ladies wanted to give birth to monkeys for him. Ah, Joker, when I came to Germany last time, there was such a person who wanted to be the king of all, and I beat him hundreds of times afterwards. The captain wearing a strange battle suit carried a shield and gave his evaluation, and naturally Wang Hao looked at his strange suit again and again. You should change your clothes when you go back, otherwise, I always feel that you are mocking yourself when you say the word Joker. Without waiting for the captain to respond, Wang Hao laughed and opened the hatch, then flew out. If you want to defeat the magic stick, you have to use the way of the magic stick. Bah, what kind of magic stick? I am not a god. Looking at Loki who was shouting 5 and 6 below, Wang Hao quickly thought of his own way of appearance. Boom! A dazzling beam of light fell suddenly, and in the night, a man with a holy face and a perfect figure descended from the sky. Below Quinjet, under the watch of the German police and reporters, under the gaze of countless people who have been brainwashed or are being brainwashed by Loki. That man, here he comes. If Loki at the moment wanted to say something, he would say shit. With its own spotlight, its own flight special effects, and its own beauty filter, once Wang Hao appeared on the stage, the effect directly surpassed him by 10 blocks. If Loki is the destined villain in that kind of movie, then when Wang Hao appeared, all his previous arrogance and madness became the pavement for Wang Hao's appearance at this moment. Who are you? Anger, gushing out constantly like magma, Loki glared at the man in front of him and the holy light behind him. No way, Wang Hao can't play anything else for the time being, so he can only play light to the end. Fortunately, he is the sun god, the god of light, and he is a veteran at manipulating light. Even if he has only learned it for a day, many skills are at his fingertips. Colorful rays of light formed a halo behind his head, and the beam of light piercing the sky was hazy, as if Angel had descended into the mortal world, and the band of light spreading around continued to spread, full of mystery, making people feel like they were in a dream. With this skill alone, he could work as a lighting engineer for nightclubs and concerts, and his annual salary would be in the millions. The effect of this rendering is naturally excellent. The captain on the plane and Natasha Romanoff and others all opened their mouths, while the police and other people who watched were almost kneeling on the ground, making the sign of the cross and shouting for the Holy Father to appear. Definitely, the cameras of the reporters and the mobile phones of the crowd were not idle, and photos and videos of Wang Hao were quickly spread around the world. It made countless marketing accounts and tabloid editors who were thinking hard about the content so happy that they pulled out the last strand of hair that they didn't want to leave their scalps, and made all the little pennies who had been immersed in mythology since the day before yesterday ecstatic, shouting yes he is what he is. However, the appearance was to calm down the situation, but the dialogue still had to continue. I am the god of the sun, the god of light. Lost lamb, how long will you be wrong? Well, thankfully it was dark at night, otherwise Loki would have been able to show everyone how dark he was. Lost lamb, this is what labor and capital fool others. Who the hell are you to call me a lost lamb? I am the god, Loki, the god of trickery, the prince of Asgard, the successor of Jotunheim, the king of the frost titans. Lamb. Are you worthy of me as a lamb? First, he was robbed of the limelight for a long time by Wang Hao's weird way of appearing on the stage. As a result, Wang Hao said that he was a lost lamb, and he forced him to pretend for a long time to become Wang Hao. At the moments Loki can't describe it with a word of exasperation. So he made a move. The scepter in his hand pointed directly at Wang Hao, the energy of the gem was stimulated, amplifying his magic, and then a magic missile flew out, flying towards Wang Hao like a sharp arrow. As a great magician, Loki has many ways to fight, but now he just wants to use the most primitive and simple and capable way to bring Wang Hao down, and then continue his unfinished repertoire. He was not worried at all that his attack would not be effective. Hard steel products and police cars would be directly melted under his magical missiles. The fragile human body obviously couldn't bear such damage. Even if Wang Hao doesn't seem to be human and possesses some special abilities, then Loki is not worried, because he added fuel to this missile, which is far more powerful than the previous one that deterred the Chinese police. Puff! The light distorted slightly, and under the impact of energy, the beam of light that had been covering Wang Hao swayed, like a stone thrown into a calm pool. And then, that's all. Loki's confident blow appeared suddenly, and disappeared suddenly. If it wasn't for Loki still raising his arm and pointing at Wang Hao with the scepter, if it wasn't for the beam of light shaking just now, everyone would have thought nothing had happened. What's wrong with this? Wang Hao blinked and looked around again. Did you attack me just now? It's no wonder that Wang Hao didn't pay attention. The beam of light was quite bright, and he didn't even think about dimming his vision a little, so in fact, he couldn't see it clearly from the outside. Then there is Loki as the god of tricks, that is, he shoots as soon as he says to shoot, raises his finger, and a powerful magic missile goes out, which is completely different from the grinding and chirping look in the movie. So Wang Hao didn't react and Loki actually attacked him. However, the final effect is that the reaction is almost the same as the non-reaction. Who are you? The power of this blow is not small. The melted police car on the side of the road is the best proof. Even if there is no additional material, this blow can penetrate the frontal armor of the main battle tank, not to mention that Loki has added material. According to Loki's estimate, even if Wang Hao is a special person, such as a member of the so-called Avengers Alliance, he knows, but with this head-on hit, Wang Hao will have to peel off his skin anyway. However, the fact is that the clouds are calm and the wind is breezy. Wang Hao's question, in Loki's view, is undoubtedly humiliating, sarcastic, and asking knowingly. So he became even more angry. The roar with thunderous special effects was deafening. Loki swung the scepter violently, and then a surge of dark secret energy turned into sharp arrows and flew towards Wang Hao in the air. Interesting. This time Wang Hao naturally saw clearly. Realizing that he had lit too brightly just now, he secretly lowered the brightness of his field of vision, so he clearly saw the dark arrow flying towards him. It's really not a good person to stab someone in the back, Wang Hao said with a smile. And the reason why he had time to act like this, instead of avoiding or defending, was because he had discovered another thing. When he focused on the back arrows flying over, he found that the speed around him slowed down. This is not the legendary bullet time, it's just an illusion caused by your excessive adrenaline secretion. You feel that time is slowing down, but your movements will not be faster because of it. Wang Hao's current situation is different. Not only does he feel that time has slowed down, but his own speed can also keep up with his feeling. In other words, he has entered a certain speeding mode. Hey, let's not talk about flight and super strength. It's okay to be bombarded by Loki just now. It's super defense. Now I have super speed. I can also control light. It's not a problem to fire lasers naturally, and I can even spit flames. Hey, DC should sue me for copyright infringement. It's not that Wang Hao made a fuss, it's really what he's showing so far, or the ability he's discovered does have that meaning. Definitely, Superman is the ancestor of superhero, his ability is actually selected and perfected to best fit the concept of superhero. Rather than saying that everyone has the abilities of Superman, it is better to say that everyone thinks that Superman should have these abilities. The same is true for Wang Hao, who has become a god. It goes without saying that super strength and defense, Thor and Loki also have them. As for super speed and lasers, they are his unique abilities as the sun god. As a celestial body in the universe, for humans, the sun exists as a reference object, so in the eyes of humans, the sun is actually a relatively static perspective. However, in fact, the position of the sun in the universe is always moving, and the speed is very fast. The Earth revolves around the sun at a speed of about 30 kilometers per second, not every minute or hour, but every second. This speed has surpassed all the flight devices that humans can currently manufacture. After all, if you exceed this speed, it means that you can escape the sun's gravity and fly out of the solar system. In fact, the sun is also revolving around the center of the Milky Way, and this speed is faster, about 250 kilometers per second. The speed of sound in the air is 340 meters per second, and this speed is 735 times the speed of sound. Even as another sun god in the level universe, Wang Hao's definition is not just the sun of the earth, his scope of responsibilities even extends to the category of fixed star, that is, all fixed stars in the entire universe. So his limit speed is far higher than the speed of the sun he has come into contact with so far. But even if it's just this speed, it's completely enough. Effortlessly dodging the trajectory of the back arrow and leaving his beam of light, Wang Hao had already arrived in front of Loki before the eyes of all the onlookers locked on. Snapped. There was a crisp slap, and Loki rolled over on the ground, then fell face down on the ground. Puff puff. Correspondingly, under the shining light, Wang Hao's body was hit by a dark arrow that was extremely obvious, but Wang Hao, who had been prepared for a long time and mustered some indescribable strength, was safe and sound as always. Hey, what's wrong with you? Wang Hao's eyes widened, and he looked innocently at Bambi lying on the ground. It seemed that his fall and the crisp applause had nothing to do with him at all. Yes, it doesn't matter at all, he obviously hasn't moved at all, everyone saw that he was right there. Well, it seems that you have realized your mistakes and want to confess to me in this way. Although you are a lost lamb, I am very happy to see the wicked turn to good and the bad turn to good. The smile on Wang Hao's face was strong, it was definitely not faked, in fact he was a bit restrained, otherwise he would have laughed even louder. I regret your uncle. Getting up from the ground suddenly, Loki stroked his slightly swollen left cheek, anger had already made him lose his mind, and even his voice changed. He didn't see how Wang Hao did it, and he didn't seem to have moved at all. But this does not prevent him from knowing that this is what Wang Hao did. And in his opinion, Wang Hao has been fooling him and playing tricks on him since he appeared. So, he raised his staff again, then fell down with a plop, knelt down on his knees, and bowed down in a very pious posture. Could it be that he really has the ability to persuade people to be good and make them better? In the fighter plane, Natasha Romanoff, who has been watching the bottom, looked surprised. The powerful Loki first attacked each time weaker than each time. At the beginning, he could make the beam of light sway twice, and then even the fluctuations disappeared. Then Mingming was furious, but behaved so strangely that he even bowed down and offered his scepter to Wang Hao. Oh, why are you being so polite? I know you have repented, there is no need to be so. Oh, I understand, this scepter gave you strength and made you lose yourself, so you plan to hand him over to me. He easily took the scepter from Loki who was prostrate on the ground, although he tightened his grip, Wang Hao lifted it lightly and the scepter was taken. Loki, who lost his scepter, curled up into a ball, clutching his stomach in pain. That foot hurts so much. Hey, I love the world. Since you are sincere and kind, then there is no harm in forgiving you, but the mistakes you committed will be punished after all, so let's go now, your crimes will be judged, but your repentance, it will set your mind free. Loki, who was kicked heavily in the stomach by someone with a high-speed sneak attack, now completely loses his mobility. Even with the body of a frost titan, it doesn't mean that he is immune to damage and ignores pain. Wang Hao picked him up easily, and then enjoyed the captain's admiring gaze with a smile on his face. The last group of people and the newly captured prisoner flew directly into the sky. Hey, didn't you say there was a fight here? Where are they? A few minutes later, looking at the empty square with only a few people, a certain Iron Man, who had arrived late, looked bewildered. After a while, Tony finally caught up with the returning Quinjet and got into the cabin. He looked at Loki who was sitting there with his eyes closed and his hair disheveled. Wang Hao talked and laughed. Is this the war you're talking about? Yes, but I didn't expect it to come so soon. I thought it would be a few days. Wang Hao said very sincerely. And after Tony looked at him carefully for a moment, he still asked. So, what you said before still counts. Although the Avengers Alliance member profile prepared by S.H.I.E.L.D. does not include Wang Hao's, but Tony's late arrival is not really late. He is the most important thing in this operation. He has been doing homework since last night, including Tesseract information, Wang Hao's message, etc. Not long ago, when Nick Fury informed him of the state-owned fighting, he had already communicated with Nick Fury about Wang Hao's information. So he knows better than others that Wang Hao's strength is probably more than what he has shown now. The so-called sun god may be true, and his personality above Odin may also be true. If that's the case, then this war may really need to rely on Wang Hao's strength to survive it safely. You mean, Wang Hao deliberately pretended not to understand. He joined in at the request of Nick Fury, as S.H.I.E.L.D. provided him as a guest of honor, sent a high-level agent to accompany him, and entered and exited confidential areas at will in return. People respect me 1 foot, and I respect others 1 foot. Equivalent exchange is a more important principle in interpersonal communication. So Wang Hao stepped in. Apart from his own desire to play 2 hands with Loki, the most important reason was this. But at this moment Tony also made his own request, so Wang Hao couldn't just agree. That's right, it's the deal you mentioned earlier. Tony's complexion changed suddenly, the corners of his eyes twitched twice, and he whispered in Wang Hao's ear as if he knew what you knew. As long as you nod your head and give an order, we will arrange everything for you, from Hollywood movie queens to new angel supermodels. Or how can I say, he is an old driver, as the American version of the prince and the national husband of Meg Guo. Tony dare not say anything else, but when it comes to playing, he is definitely the kind of core player who is called the second and others dare not say the first. Hey, since you sincerely invited me, I'll accept it without any trouble. Don't make too much noise, it's just a party. Wang Hao replied righteously without changing his face. And Tony nodded at the right time, as if the two of them were discussing some confidential matter just now, discussing the next strategic layout. After discussing this matter, Tony's mood suddenly relaxed a lot. Wang Hao has this kind of ability, which can make the people around him feel at ease, as if they have sustenance in their hearts. So, Tony, who had let go of the stone in his heart, turned his head to look at Loki, who lowered his head. Wow, isn't this Bambi, where's your horn? Tony looked around, disappointed that the huge amounts of gold antler helmet Loki had been wearing earlier was not in the cabin. He actually wanted to take that thing back and hang it on the wall as a trophy. HMPH, ignorant mortal. Facing Tony's ridicule, Loki didn't take it seriously, but sneered disdainfully. Mortal, oh, forgot, you are the prince of Asgard, the famous evil god Loki, but sorry, we have a sun god. With Tony's courage to rely on, it's a lot of courage, Loki mocked him as just a mortal, so he immediately moved out of Wang Hao. And this trick was obviously very effective. Loki looked at the smiling Wang Hao, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes, and his face changed a few times, but then he was full of doubts. Sun god, Badr died a long time ago. That fellow Apollo is not as capable as you are. As for La, he is a god king. His power is immeasurable. Are you Dongwang Tai? The earth has bred many civilizations since ancient times, as well as many gods and pantheons. The Norse pantheon or Odin pantheon, to which Loki belongs, is just one of them. And the sun god, no matter which god system he is in, is an existence above the main god, but Loki counted it, and only the eastern sun god he knew little about fits the image of the man in front of him. Apollo is still there, I know, who is Dongwang Tai? Tony turned his head to look at Wang Hao. Because of some factors, the culture of that country has not been publicized except for a few neighboring countries. Although it has the longest history and has been passed down for a long time, in the Western world where Tony lives, these things are not known to the general public. It's also the sun god, the former emperor of heaven, almost the same as you know. Wang Hao didn't explain too much, he knows that there are oriental gods and gods in the Marvel world. Even the monkey, the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother are also quite a few. Definitely, the Oriental god understood by the editors of Marvel is still quite different from that understood by the flower planters. I am not the god of your earth. After explaining to Tony, Wang Hao shook his head at Loki again. But he didn't expect Loki's complexion to change drastically when he said this sentence. Then outsiders, you should know how serious the consequences of invading the domains of other gods are. You are declaring war. You are provoking us. Odin, Zeus, etc. are the local gods bred on the earth for billions of years. Although they have left the earth now and are hidden in the heavenly realm of the gods, this does not mean that they can allow other worlds and gods of other civilizations to do so without permission, meddle in the affairs of the earth. Simple domain awareness. Humans may not care. Human life has been rushing for 100 years, how can we have the qualifications and time to care about the ownership of the earth? But for these almost eternal gods, the earth is their back garden, their hometown, and a part they cannot give up. Odin even wants to die on the coast of northern Europe, this is their obsession. But now, Wang Hao said that he is a foreign god, and this behavior is the same as that of a wandering alpha wolf invading the territory of other wolf kings. No matter how violent Loki was, that was their own business, but once Wang Hao intervened, the meaning would be completely different. Because of this, Loki, who had fear in his eyes before, suddenly started to sneer. Laugh at your head. With a clang, Loki's scepter smacked him hard on the head, knocking him out, and outside, thunder erupted. Crazy, sneer at me. Looking at Loki, who was knocked unconscious, Wang Hao touched the scepter in his hand, with a look of displeasure. As a prisoner, you must have the consciousness of a prisoner. If you don't put you in big characters, it will be inconvenient to see the venue here. What is Loki thinking? Wang Hao still doesn't know. It is nothing more than that he thought that Wang Hao, as a foreign god, would touch the common resistance of the local gods on the earth. For example, Odin, who may be looking for him now. Once he knows Wang Hao's identity and origin, he will immediately turn around and attack Wang Hao first, drive him away. That's why Loki felt that he was on the verge of a comeback, so he started to sneer at Wang Hao. But he forgot that he is still a prisoner now. Wang Hao will not be polite to him, even if he will fight with Odin and the others later, it must be to beat you up first. Strange, the system detects that today is a sunny day, right? Not caring about Wang Hao hammering Loki out, Natasha Romanoff flew the plane smoothly in the air. It's just that the surrounding thunderstorms are becoming more and more intense, which hinders the flight of the plane. That's because this guy's big brother is here. After the voice fell, a heavy object fell on the top of the fighter plane, and the whole plane shook violently, and then Loki, who was knocked unconscious by the hammer, tilted his head and fell straight down, his face stuck to the ground. And over there, the hatch suddenly opened after a burst of electric sparks, and a tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bearded man in iron armor rolled over and got in. Loki. With tears in his eyes, Thor looked at Loki in front of him, and couldn't believe that this was his stupid auto. Look at his current appearance, the luxurious clothes that have always been extremely neat and wrinkled or draped over his body, and the long, shiny black hair is spread out, completely covering his head. The most important thing is his current posture. His knees were kneeling on the floor, his buttocks were raised high, and the main force supporting his body was his handsome and extraordinary face. Thor pointed at the people in the cabin with a look of grief and indignation. The captain took a look at Tony with the shield, and then they both turned their gazes to Wang Hao. No, what are you looking at me for? I didn't touch it. He fell asleep and fell down by himself. Is it my fault? Wang Hao shouted innocently, and then looked behind him. Natasha Romanoff, you said you don't even know how to fly a plane, what's wrong with the prisoner? The prisoner is also a human being. No, he is a god, and that's the same. Abuse of a prisoner violates the Geneva Convention. Wang Hao said righteously. Well, I don't think Natasha Romanoff is to blame, it's him who didn't wear his seat belt. Tony, who was listening happily from the sidelines, interjected. It turned out he wasn't wearing a seat belt, that's okay, I blamed you, Natasha Romanoff. Wang Hao and Tony smiled at each other, then looked back at Thor. Hey, you Asgard should strengthen your traffic safety education. This is a car, no, how can you not wear a seatbelt when you fly? See, something will happen here. Wang Hao squatted down, helped Loki up with his face close to the ground, then leaned back on the chair, and fastened his seatbelt thoughtfully. Remember next time, not everyone is as good as me. Boom, boom, the deafening thunder sounded constantly. In the cabin, Thor's complexion was as black as carbon, his eyes were completely lit up, and there was rolling plasma inside. You fools! Roar! Although they had a falling out with Loki, and even Loki wanted to kill him, but brothers fight against each other as a family matter. After thousands of years of getting along, Thor and Loki's brotherhood is still deep. But at this moment, seeing Loki being insulted wantonly by outsiders, that kind of anger has never been seen before, and Thor has a bad temper in the first place. If the god of thunder has a better temper, is he still Thor? Call. The clenched Mjolnir was swung out. The Mjolnir made of the star core of a Death Star was as heavy as 1,000 weights. Under the blessing of Thor's divine power, the air seemed to turn into a quagmire. In an instant, the air pressure in the cabin was extremely tense. However, in the next moment, light appeared, and warm light radiated from Wang Hao's body, resisting the pressure and taking all the damage. So, what are you angry about? He asked for his appearance like this. The fist wrapped in golden light stretched out, and before Thor could react, a powerful force hit his cheek, blasting him directly out. Along the wide-open cabin door, Thor flew out, the god of thunder turned into lightning, and disappeared from the field of vision in the blink of an eye. I'm going to talk to him. Wang Hao rubbed his fists with a playful smile on his face. Then the golden light rose, and Wang Hao appeared outside the cabin, chasing after Thor in the direction he flew out. I'll try to persuade you to fight. Tony's eyes lit up, then the visor fell down, palms down, the propellers started, propelling him to fly out. Do you believe he's trying to persuade a fight? The captain rubbed his forehead. Tony's expression was obviously to watch the excitement. The captain even suspected that if the fight between the two sides was not intense enough, Tony would even fan the flames there. Sorry, Captain, they are all gods, and I can't stop them. Natasha Romanoff looked back helplessly. God. The captain looked at Loki, who was still unconscious and bruised, tied to the chair, then shook his head and picked up a parachute from under the chair. If Shendu is like this, then I declare that I am an atheist from now on. In the mountains and forests 2 kilometers away from Quinjet. Because of the war opportunity, Wang Hao withdrew his strength a little bit, which was only a little stronger than the fist that punched Loki at that time, so this punch only sent Thor flying 2 kilometers away. And when Thor recovered from the heavy blow, Wang Hao had already appeared in front of him again. I think you Asgard not only need to strengthen traffic safety education, but you also need to learn how to manage your emotions. All of you are not good at skills, but you have a lot of temper. What? It was still the hammer that moved first, but this time, Thor, who also didn't have to worry about the plane, used his real skills. Accompanied by his attack, rolling thunder appeared around him almost at the same time. Boom boom boom. The thunder exploded, and the plasma surrounded Thor's body like a poisonous snake. The power of this blow was far beyond the pure physical collision just from the visual effect. Tisk, I have cultivated both magic and martial arts. However, after concentrating, Wang Hao once again entered the super speed state. Thor's attack was fierce, but it was as slow as a snail for Wang Hao, so naturally there was no threat. Dad said that only magic can defeat magic, so I'll come too. Light is condensing, starlight, moonlight, and actually the sunlight that still exists at night gathers in Wang Hao's hands at the speed of light, and is then rubbed into a ball by him. What should I call it? Xuanyuanjian. A long sword made of condensed light was held by Wang Hao, and then he slashed off. Boom. The collision of light and electricity, the conflict of power and power, at the moment of contact, the invisible shockwave is generated immediately, and then spreads constantly to the surroundings, destroying everything that blocks itself. Tony, who just flew over, yelled and flew backwards, and the strong shockwave swept him across. If it wasn't for the protection of the armor, the impact would have directly torn his body apart. But even though he wasn't injured, it was just the aftermath that made him fly backwards, which really surprised Tony. As a self-proclaimed genius, he has always believed that man can conquer nature, and no matter how powerful the so-called god is, he can still catch up with human intelligence. Among other things, no matter how powerful you are, how many nuclear bombs can you resist? Is it 1 or 100? But now it seems that, let alone projecting nuclear bombs, the aftermath of close combat can blow him away so far, so the bomber still wants to get closer. Long-range missiles still want to hit accurately. Energy gathered on the thrusters, Tony withstood the pressure, and rushed towards the center of the battlefield. He would never allow himself to be disqualified from being a bystander, and his pride would not allow this to happen. However, when he really appeared in the middle of the battlefield, he realized that he still underestimated the intensity of the battle. Flames everywhere, the blazing flames turned this area into a purgatory, the white flames scorched the air, and the shocking temperature on Wang Hao's body completely glazed the sand and stones without even touching the ground. On the opposite side of him, Thor's face was scorched, and it was difficult to see a good piece of skin all over his body, but he was still full of fighting spirit. The dazzling electric light surrounded him, the purple lightning danced wildly, and the plasma flowed, instantly charring the trees beside him. It's not just the power in the body, the Mjolnir that's being held tightly trembles like a living thing, and every time it trembles, there will be deafening thunder in the sky, as if a general is beating for him. Drum cheer. You're fast, but are you faster than lightning? Thor suddenly spoke. Almost bruised and bruised, he suffered countless heavy blows in a short period of time just now, but fortunately, his divine body was strong enough to hold on, and he also found a way to fight Wang Hao. What? The hammer was held high, and Mjolnir's heart beat violently. Afterwards, the deep clouds in the sky roared, and countless thunderbolts scrambled to fall, like sharp swords of divine punishment towards Wang Hao's body. The top of the head is cut off. I have an idea. Wang Hao sighed. It is worthy of the Asgard god of war who has fought for thousands of years, to find a solution so quickly. Then it depends on whether I can stand it. Indeed, the speed he is displaying so far is no match for lightning. After all, if he has done his best, it seems that he has less than 72 hours to become the sun god. And Thor has been Thor for thousands of years. However, it doesn't matter if you can't run against lightning, as long as you can withstand the power of lightning. A mere lightning is nothing more than a product of cloud discharge on the planet, and I am fixed star, and I am the sun god. Feeling the powerful force in his body, Wang Hao was full of confidence, watching the lightning falling from the sky without dodging or avoiding it, and using his body to welcome its baptism. Ah! With surging divine power and surging thunder and lightning, Thor roared and roared, throwing all his anger, all his grievances, and all his emotions into this lightning storm. What? In the center of the storm, Wang Hao received the baptism of thunder and lightning. The corners of his mouth twitched nonstop, his whole body trembled, his arms spread out, and then suddenly fell down. His whole body seemed to be unable to exert any more strength. It's so cool, it's even better than killing a chicken with a horse. What? With an extremely lazy waist, Wang Hao opened his mouth wide and let out a comfortable cry. He thought it was a big deal, but it turned out to be an electric massage. This round of electric current comes down, just like the little fists behind the electric massage chair, falling on your body, and the impact on your back is very comfortable. Is there any more? I still have to have a good time. At worst, I will pay your electricity bill. Looking at Thor holding the hammer over there, Wang Hao had an expression that I couldn't enjoy enough. Puff! What responded to him was the sound of Thor falling headlong to the ground after he collapsed. Tisk! This won't work, hypocrisy. So men can do anything, but they must last. It doesn't matter if it's soft or short, as long as it lasts, there is still room for manipulation. Seeing that the discharged Pikachu had completely lost his ability to resist, Wang Hao showed a bright smile as always. Mjolnir, I wonder if I can lift it. Pikachu naturally doesn't need to care about it, what Wang Hao cares about is the little hammer. Well, it's very light. Sure enough, the crushing of personalities made it easy for Wang Hao to lift the hammer without feeling any resistance at all. However, even though he raised it, Wang Hao did not feel the so-called divine power of Thor. It was released by Pikachu just now. Wang Hao glanced at Thor, who was lying unconscious on the ground, and then looked at the captain in the distance, who was rushing through the jungle and rushing here. Ha, ha, you guys, are you done? It was quite close, just over 2 kilometers, but when the captain parachuted, Wang Hao and Thor collided for the first time. Shockwave not only blew Tony away, but also the captain. And he was not like Tony who could fly back. He was swept by the strong wind while floating in the air, and the parachute floated all the way. The original 2 kilometers turned into more than 5 kilometers. Poor him, he is still thinking about the battle here, thinking that Thor may be an ally, and he can't fight among himself, so he tried his best to eat milk, and his legs moved fast. The last time he was like this was avoiding the bombing of the Nazis on the battlefield. Even if he was a super soldier who ran down the road, he was out of breath. But it doesn't matter, Wang Hao is here to recharge him. I just found out that Thor's ability seems to come from this hammer. If he confiscates this thing first, he should be able to calm down. Here, take it for you. Wang Hao casually handed the small hammer to the captain, and looked at him with a warm and sunny smile. Oh, so, you are very thoughtful, the Asgards really need to calm down. The captain straightened up, then reached out and took the hammer. Ah, the dazzling electric current quickly wrapped around the captain's body, and a bolt of lightning fell down, enveloping the captain within. The powerful thunder energy quickly replenished the captain's physical strength and endowed him with powerful divine power. At the same time, a layer of armor formed by the divine power of thunder was constantly wrapped around the captain. Soon, He changed from a circus man to a member of the medieval mythology crew. Oh, it's kind of handsome, but why didn't it respond when I lifted it up just now? Wang Hao's eyes glowed first. This transformation effect is really eye-catching. It has the feeling of Sailor Moon turning on the BGM and starting to dance. But after reacting, he found out, why didn't you transform me when I picked it up, and you can change it as soon as you put it on the captain? What's wrong? You still engage in discrimination, don't you? You explain to me, you have to explain. Pulling Mjolnir from the captain's hand, the thunder that filled the sky stopped abruptly. The captain's transformation was interrupted in the middle, and the armor on his body was only half worn, and the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. But these things can't be controlled by small hammers. Wang Hao pinched it in his hand and kept questioning, and a hot flame suddenly ignited in his hand, and his life was about to die. But fortunately, there are people behind Little Hammer, and Asgard is a god system with parents looking after it. With the appearance of a vast spiritual energy, the hammer trembled in Wang Hao's hand, and a phantom emerged from the hammer and appeared in front of Wang Hao. Golden armor, gray beard and hair, one-eyed, strong and burly body despite being old, and the gleaming golden spear that is particularly valuable at first glance. Odin, father. On the ground, the awakened Thor raised his head weakly and looked at Odin, who appeared in front of him. His eyes were full of shame and unwillingness. However, seeing Thor's miserable state, Odin just sighed leisurely. Dear sun god, I apologize to Thor and Loki for their offense. Please also forgive their ignorance and mistakes. Just as Ancient One can see the difference between Wang Hao, Odin can also see the difference between Wang Hao and him. Wang Hao himself didn't realize it was because he was born too short a time, but the aura on his body was completely different from those chaos gods like Odin. So he knew very well that he couldn't afford to mess with Wang Hao. Although he is the king of gods, the lord of Asgard, the king of Asgard, the father of God, the god of wisdom and magic, the great prophet Odin. But he can't afford it. Father. However, Odin traveled thousands of miles to negotiate with Wang Hao through the spirit left in Mjolnir. All he did was to save his son's life. But Thor was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. In his mind, Odin has always been the one who is invincible and always has wisdom in his hands. Even in the most difficult time of Asgard, surrounded by enemies, hidden worries inside and enemies outside, Odin is still the man who is the leader of all Asgard, pillars of the mind. No, father, you can't beg him for mercy. Wait, you are not Odin. Who are you, dare to impersonate the great Odin, soul? The dark clouds rolled in the sky, and the thunder sounded. Thor wanted to absorb the power of the thunder to repair himself and replenish his divine power. He wanted to continue fighting, for Asgard. Boom! The small silver hammer flew up through the air, and then precisely hit Thor's head, making this unyielding, tenacious, unyielding warrior bravely and gloriously rush to the street. Then Odin's projection beckoned, summoning the hammer back. It seems that the lesson I taught him last time was not enough. Great sun god, please keep this hammer until you think this idiot is qualified to master it again. Definitely, you can also let this heroic warrior use it to fight. Odin glanced over the captain, then looked at Wang Hao, waiting for his response. Okay. Wang Hao took the hammer casually, and this time, he clearly felt the thunder power inside the hammer, or a certain symbol. Holders can get the power of Thor. However, Wang Hao also clearly discovered that it wasn't that he didn't want to use this divine power, but that when the electric current touched him, a stronger and hotter force would force it away. To put it bluntly, it is actually Wang Hao's sun power that won't let him. Odin's figure slowly dissipated. Wang Hao played with the small hammer in his hand, but he got tired of playing it after a while. After all, there is no setting that can't be lifted and the ability to transform into Thor. It is a simulation of a certain treasure. The product doesn't really make any difference. Wang Hao casually handed Mjolnir to the captain, who was still a bit confused. It's still up to you to keep it. If you need it, you can lift it up, and then you can transform into the God of Thunder. The captain looked at the hammer in his hand, and recalled the scene of Tianlei empowerment when he encountered it for the first time just now. Although the transformation was interrupted by Wang Hao, he still received some information, so he did not refuse the offer. Gift. Now it's time to fight, so don't make good use of such a powerful force, refuse. It's not that he's out of his mind. The one just now, as Odin. Ah, It's just a projection of him. It's changed by the power he left in the hammer. I have to say that the old guy who has lived for tens of thousands of years can be a man. Looking back now, Wang Hao still feels unfulfilled. It didn't take long for Odin to leave the stage, but the set of operations was smooth and smooth. First, he belittled Thor and Loki, and then praised Wang Hao from the beginning to the end. You are all so great. As the saying goes, do not hit the smiling face. Odin is so generous. Wang Hao listens comfortably. Even if he is angry, he will disappear, and if he is not angry, he will be even more happy. As a result, the son's life was saved, and what was lost was nothing more than an insignificant period of tempering in God's long life. As for giving the hammer to Wang Hao, it's a matter of course. Even if he doesn't give it, can Wang Hao take it back? It is still possible for him to exist in the body, but what can a projection do? But he lowered his profile and said that he would hand it over to Wang Hao, and his attitude was completely different. Then Wang Hao would feel embarrassed even if he wanted it. Moreover, Wang Hao was just using it for fun, so it would be shameful for him to fight with a small hammer. So the seemingly intense conflicts and contradictions were easily resolved by Odin, and everyone was happy. No wonder he is the god of wisdom, he really has wisdom. Wang Hao laughed and said, he felt comfortable too. Who wouldn't be comfortable being complimented by a big guy like Odin? The farce finally came to an end, and Natasha Romanoff flew the plane back to pick them up again. Only this time, there were 2 more people with bruised noses and swollen faces on the plane. Wait, where's Tony? Just as the plane was about to take off, the captain suddenly remembered that he still had a teammate, but at a glance, the surroundings were in a mess, and there was no sign of Tony. It's just that the surroundings were pitch black, especially when Wang Hao involuntarily ignited a flame just now. The scorching sun and real fire burned the surroundings into a mess, and there were flying ashes everywhere. Wait a minute, I'll light up. With a snap of fingers, a ball of light appeared in the sky, and the night turned into day, so everyone who was still active on the plane got down and started searching. In the end, after searching for a long time, someone found a stunned fool among the ashes. Is he a fool? Why doesn't he run away? The gold and red battle armor is already in tatters. Although it can withstand some thunder and lightning bombardment, and even has the function of charging, Thor just opened up. In the lightning storm, there is such a thunder and electric shock, no matter how strong the steel armor can resist it, it is not invincible. Fortunately, life is big, not dead. After Wang Hao violently tore open the damaged armor, Natasha Romanoff checked and finally determined that he still had a heartbeat. It is estimated that this thing saved him. Wang Hao tapped the reactor on Tony's chest. In addition to being used as an electromagnet, this thing is also equivalent to a pacemaker. Such a powerful electric current is enough to stop this guy's heart hundreds of times after defeating the defense of the armor, and his heart is still there. Beating, it can only be this spare heart that saved him. So, in the end, the number of people on the plane was unknown, and there were 3 people in a panic. At the same time, in a certain parallel time and space, a group of people gathered together. Okay, just to make sure again, Captain, Banner, Little Thing and I, the 4 of us head to New York in 2012, Banner goes to find the juggler, and the 3 of us take the Tesseract and mine Scepter. The Quinjet landed slowly on the deck of the helicarrier. Except for a certain Iron Man who was electrocuted and somewhat insane, Thor and Loki, who were extremely physically fit, had already woken up. Definitely, the 2 of them didn't dare to continue to make trouble, they just sat in the plane with big eyes and small eyes. Should we lock him up too? The agent who came to escort Loki took a look at Thor, who was in a panic, and turned to look at his chief, Black Widow. The Widow, on the other hand, kept staring at Wang Hao, smiling silly while watching, and a blush appeared on her face. As for that kind of smile, there is a special adjective, idiot smile. It usually occurs when a star chaser girl or a star chaser ant can't help the surge of hormones when she sees Xiao Shanru, and starts to fantasize about dream weddings and flower beds, and even include various so-called romantic scenes that only appear in TV dramas and movies. Ahem, no need. Nick Fury appeared in time. He first glanced at Natasha Romanoff, made up his mind in his heart that he must keep his female agent as far away from Wang Hao as possible, and then stared at Thor. We are on the same side now, and I hope you can recognize the reality. Loki is our common enemy and threat, so, are you awake? At times like this Nick Fury showed his mettle as a leader. Although Thor's appearance was not very friendly, he was a person who had fought side by side with S.H.I.E.L.D. His behavior also proved that he was on the side of justice and human beings. Well, Thor is worth fighting for, Wong Hao said. What Loki brings is a war, what he brings is an army. Regarding Nick Fury's question, the disheartened Thor just glanced at Wong Hao again. Like Natasha Romanoff, his focus has been on Wong Hao. And when he did this, it naturally showed his attitude. He was waiting for Wong Hao to speak, or in his opinion, only what Wong Hao said counted here. So everyone's eyes turned to Wong Hao. Why do you look at me? If you want to come, how can I stop you? I'm not a member of your Superboy group. Hearing what Wong Hao said, everyone realized that Wong Hao is currently participating in these matters as a consultant hired by Nick Fury, and he really did not agree to join the Avengers Alliance. Oh. A man with a slanted mouth and squinting eyes was lying on a stretcher trying to make his own voice. Even though he was paralyzed by the electric shock, he still fought on the front line. This kind of spirit of being physically disabled and able to survive serious injuries is really admirable. Bring him down for treatment first. Nick Fury rubbed his forehead, and quickly asked the agent to take this shameful guy away. But Thor on the side also made his own choice. I will help you. Loki is from Asgard. His fate can only be decided by Asgard. Moreover, I also want to see what kind of person can be recognized by Mjolnir. As Thor spoke, he turned his head and looked at the captain who was holding a small hammer. This time he just lost the hammer, just like after the hammer was crushed in the movie. His own power was not sealed by Odin, so he still has the physical fitness and fighting power far from Superman. It's just that it's impossible to get the hammer back, and Wong Hao has to agree to it. The face of the captain stared at by Thor remained unchanged. The power of the hammer was astonishing, allowing him to have the power of thunder, and its effect was far beyond that of the military boxing in the movie. At such a critical juncture, he obviously wouldn't hand it over easily. Besides, it was Odin's permission, and he didn't snatch it. In this way, Thor finally joined the big family of the Avengers Alliance, and everyone came to the interior of the mothership together, and Nick Fury and others also learned more about the Chitauri army led by Loki. Originally they only knew that there was such an army from Wong Hao, but they didn't know the specific information at all, but now, they think it's better not to know. Everyone in the Avengers Alliance was busy discussing these matters, while Wong Hao ran to Banner's workshop, where he was studying Loki's psychic scepter. Mind gem, do I have a mind ability? Staring at the scepter on the table, while Banner was doing various scans with the instrument, Wong Hao suddenly looked up at him. Dr. Banner. What's the matter? Banner, who was working hard, was taken aback by Wong Hao, and then stared at him blankly, wondering why this great master went crazy. To be honest, on the entire helicarrier, Wong Hao is the person Banner feels most comfortable with. The agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. made Banner feel nervous all the time. After all, he used to be hunted down by the government every day, and shot and fired at every turn. Now seeing people in uniforms is a bit psychologically disturbing. As for the captain is too old-fashioned, and several eras have passed. Either he and the captain can't get together, or the captain can't get along with all of them. On this ship, apart from Wong Hao, there may be only one Tony who can chat with him normally, but unfortunately, that baby is still lying on the hospital bed, and the sequelae of electrotherapy have not recovered yet. So, after all the calculations, only Wong Hao can give Banner a normal atmosphere to get along with. Well, what do you think the sun represents? What does the sun represent? Banner, holding the detection instrument in his hand, looked at the cold laboratory and the scepter on the table, and then glanced at Wong Hao, who looked at him expectantly. If I remember correctly, this guy is the sun god. Don't you ask me this question if you don't know. I'm a scientist. The sun, isn't that a cosmic celestial body undergoing large-scale nuclear fusion? Well, the sun, it represents light. Wong Hao looked at Banner with a smile and nodded. What else? Also, it represents flame, strength, greatness. Mortal emperors like to use the sun symbol to decorate themselves and flaunt themselves. Let me think about it again. And justice is also a symbol of masculinity, just like the moon symbol of femininity. Banner smiled, then met Wong Hao's expectant eyes and fell into thinking again. Master, ruler, sky, time and space. By the way, there is still hope. When the last word came out of Banner's mouth, Wang Hao's eyes lit up. He knew he had found what he was looking for. He knows all the previous things, and he can even say more. Those are the abilities he is trying to understand. Such as time and space. The sun is the most primitive means of recording time for human beings. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west to rise again to represent the passing of a day. This is the most basic means of dividing time before determining hours, minutes, years and seconds. In ancient times, humans used sundials to record changes in time, so the sun is also a symbol of time changes and the god of time. Definitely, touching time is the direction of Wang Hao's future efforts, and this time, he discovered something that he has been ignoring. Hope. The sun makes the dawn, the sun represents the light, the sun gives life to all things. And these things together create hope. Hope is not a specific thing or substance or energy, it is virtual, but it is the most possible force. Moreover, it is also the power to communicate with the soul that Wang Hao seeks. Hope, where is it? Ignoring Banner anymore, Wang Hao closed his eyes, and the words of hope echoed in his mind, recalling those beautiful pictures about human beings in his memory, and the fire of hope ignited in despair. Afterwards, he felt and discovered a ray of power permeating the depths of the soul of life. Between the sparks of life, there are clusters of lights of hope supporting them. It is hope that makes them fight for the future. If the future is dark, who will continue to embrace the future? If there is only darkness left in life, who cares about the time ahead? On the helicarrier, everything disappeared, and in Wang Hao's spiritual vision, there were only clusters of lights of hope left, and among them, the most intense flame was still that man. Captain, but the question is, how to use this power? The spiritual power is activated, but Wang Hao also began to wonder whether the power of hope can be used directly. Or is it just to inspire people? The answer is definitely no. When Wang Hao continued to explore, he discovered that there is a light of hope in every living being. After all, this is also one of the sources of life. But the ray of hope is not indifferent to reality. When this kind of spiritual power is condensed, it has the effect of changing everything and changing reality. Still, Captain, this man with the most radiant light of hope, when Wang Hao focused his vision on him, he was surprised to find that the power of hope was resisting the invasion of reality, and combined with something in his body after that, strengthened his body. Super Soldier Serum. Wang Hao soon determined that the substance in the captain's body was definitely Super Soldier Serum. There are many super soldiers, but in fact, the captain's Super Soldier Serum is the only one. Many super soldiers including Winter Soldier, Natasha Romanoff and Black Panther have been injected with similar strengthening serums, but none of those serums can match the effect of the captain. This is not to say that the changes in physical strength, the effect of the serum of Winter Soldier is actually more obvious than that. But those who really understand will find that whether it is Winter Soldier or Black Panther, their strengthening is one-sided, limited to the body and bodily functions. And the captain's strengthening is not just as simple as getting stronger physically, his brain has also become more developed, and his spiritual will has also become stronger. But now it seems that the reason for this is probably the result of the combination of the light of hope in the captain's body and the super soldier. Changing reality, I suddenly had some bold ideas. Wang Hao opened his eyes, and in front of him was Banner, who was still thinking about what the sun represented, but this time, in Wang Hao's eyes, a ray of golden light shone in Banner's body. Bruce, do you believe the future will be better? Ah, what? Do you believe that no matter how twists and turns the reality is, how difficult it is, no matter how miserable the world is, everything will still be better and better? The power of invisible affects Bruce's psychology, and he can't help recalling the painful bits and pieces of the past. However, in addition to those pains and sorrows, he is still running hard, changing, and trying to save him own. Yes, I believe. Then believe in me, let me give you hope. In the golden light, a ray of light turned into a silk thread, and then threw it into Wang Hao's body. It's still too weak, after all, it's the result of my mental impact. Walking in the corridor, Wang Hao was playing with his newly acquired power. The power of faith, the power of God, the power of will, is probably such a thing, but it has the ability to rewrite reality. In theory, it can even create the world. This made Wang Hao can't help but think of that magic stick. Creating the world in 7 days, making wind and rain everywhere, could it be that he is collecting this kind of power? This is not impossible. The guy Jehovah is supposed to be the god of light, but in the end he turned into such a magic stick, perhaps because he discovered this power. At least in Wang Hao's opinion, this kind of power is not inferior to any extraordinary power he has known and come into contact with. If there are enough, it is not impossible to use this thing to become a god of the universe or even transcend the universe. Then did he fail, or did he leave this world after succeeding? Wang Hao rationally thinks that he should have left this universe after being successful. After all, compared with other earth gods, he has the most beliefs, but the actual behavior is the least. Needless to say, the Nordic gods represented by Thor, the Olympus gods from Zeus have also appeared. In the comics, Hercules has appeared a lot. The same is true for the Eastern god system and the Nile River god system, but the guy with the most beliefs is mysterious and ashamed. Except for Ghost Rider, the guy created by him, who shows up from time to show that he is real. I am afraid that some people think that there is no such god on Earth in the Marvel world. You are here. The sudden sound made Wang Hao stop thinking, and when he looked up, it was the captain. What's wrong? Seeing the captain in a hurry, Wang Hao paid more attention to the light of hope in his body. If this guy takes the initiative to believe in me, he should be able to increase a lot of this power. Wang Hao thought so. It's Thor, he said. The power of the sun god can heal injuries, so we want to ask you if you can heal Stark. After all, we really need him right now. As the only two technical experts in the Avengers Alliance, Tony is still very important, not only in combat, but also because he can help Dr. Banner track the Tesseract. Treat. Wang Hao just wanted to refuse, but then he thought about it. The sun is the source of all life on the Earth. Without the sun, the Earth is just a cold planet hundreds of degrees below zero. Then, it is not surprising that Wang Hao, as the sun god, can also be called the god of life, has the power to heal life. Okay, let me try it. Walking to Stark's bedside, the mothership is naturally equipped with medical soldiers, but Stark's condition is actually very simple. It is just a nervous system disorder caused by excessive electrotherapy. Many of his nerves were burned by the powerful electric current. Although the main body was not touched, it would not be a matter of one day to recover. At least he would have to lie in bed for a month or so before regaining his mobility. At the moment, when he saw Wang Hao approaching, Tony, whose eyes were slanted and mouth slanted, was clear-headed, but his body was really out of control, and he couldn't talk to him, so he could only whine in vain. Okay, I see, let me see. Asking the nurse to step aside, Wang Hao took a look at Tony's appearance, and then put his hand on his arm. Life force. Under Wang Hao's induction, the field of vision changed again, the light of hope disappeared, and then the life force that represented the existence of life appeared. This is it. Among this helicarrier, the most active and powerful life force is naturally Wang Hao, followed by the two gods Thor and Loki, and then Banner, and the next row is the captain and Natasha Romanoff. And Tony's breath of life was the weakest of them all. That's it. A ball of light appeared on Wang Hao's hand, and with his movements, the light gradually became stronger, and then completely wrapped Tony, who was lying on the hospital bed, penetrating into his body. Wang Hao focused his gaze, and suddenly, everything in Tony's body was clearly revealed. The damaged body, broken tissues and burned nerves all came into his vision. Then a burst of light entered. Under the radiance of the light, the damaged body quickly began to recover. Nerves, muscles, tissues and organs began to heal and regenerate at an extremely fast speed. Ah, a clearly visible voice shouted from Tony's mouth. He now feels like drinking a glass of iced lemonade in the dog days of summer. His heart is cold and his heart is flying. It's a bit like the 12th lunar month of winter, returning to a warm room from the cold wind of tens of degrees below zero, and the warm ginger soup in the mouth instantly dispels the cold. Yes, I will solve this problem for you. The light is still repairing Tony's body. This life force is extremely majestic, but to Wang Hao, it's just a drop in the ocean, not worth mentioning at all. So, he directly lifted the quilt on Tony's body, buttoned it down with his big hand, and he directly pulled off the luminous object on Tony's chest. Stark. The reactor was pulled down with flesh and blood, and the captain outside screamed because in his eyes, there was still a beating heart in the pile of flesh and blood. Yeah, I've used a lot of strength. Seeing the heart still dripping with blood, Wang Hao smiled embarrassedly. while Tony, who was pale on the hospital bed, looked at the lump of flesh with a face of shock. His hands and feet twitched, and he was about to die on the spot. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.